What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with second part of what if Naruto wields a sentient weapon. If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. And also check the description box to original creator of this beautiful cretin. It had been a few weeks since Naruto had given the weapons to the clan heads and he was currently having a good time. He had been riding to Tamari in Wind Country. As it turns out things were going pretty well over there. Apparently Gaara saw his life flash before his eyes when he fought Naruto. He apologized to his siblings and earned their trust. As it turns out the two were never afraid of Gaara. They were just afraid that they would lose their little brother to the monster that was inside of him. Anyway, Naruto had gotten to know the Wind Mistress pretty well from her letters. As it turns out Gaara is actually being considered to become the next Case Cage. Naruto was happy for his friend and that things were going well. Right now Naruto was walking through the village. He ignored some of the glares he got, although he was trying to ignore the flirtatious looks from some of the females. He was nervous around girls lately because yesterday he had heard one girl talking about chains, whips, and not leaving until neither of them could move. Naruto had made sure to steer clear of a few women that day. He was walking near a bar when he heard someone call out his name. "Hey Naruto." Naruto turned to find that the person calling his name was Asuma. "Hey chain smoker," Naruto said, "what's up?" "Listen," Asuma said, "I heard a rumor going around that you killed the snake Sanin. Is it true?" "It is," Naruto said, making Asuma gasp. "Oh boy," he muttered, then he looked at the blonde and said, "You might want to make yourself scarce for a while, kid." Anko's had her eye on the snake's head for a while. "If she finds you, oh man, I don't even want to begin on what would happen to you." Naruto nodded and decided to save himself some pain and ran back to his complex. Naruto was walking calmly through the courtyard when he sensed another chakra. He focused his chakra and sent it out like radar. It was something he had been working on. He felt some other chakra other than his own. It had a fiery yet poisonous feel to it. Then he felt something and jumped out of the way before he was hit by a barrage of kunai. Naruto followed the trail to see Anko standing there. And she did not look very happy. "Hey Anko," Naruto said nervously, "how have you been?" How have you been, you little runt?" Anko growled as she jumped down and landed in front of the blonde. "Why did you do it?" she yelled. "Do what?" Naruto asked. Anko charged at him, catching Naruto by surprise. The two busted through the door of the main house and landed with Anko on top, pinning the blonde to the ground. She got in close to his face and snarled, "Why did you kill him?" Anko yelled, "He was mine. It was my revenge to take. I had no choice," Naruto said, trying to calm the angry snake mistress. "If I didn't he would have killed everyone else." Anko growled. She got in close to his face and hissed, "If I can't kill him, I'll just take my aggression out on you. Hot blonde or not, you will pay for taking my revenge from me." Naruto knew he had to think quick or he was dead meat. He knew he was going to regret this. Naruto shoved his head forward and kissed Anko deeply. The snake mistress's eyes widened in shock at the fact that the kid she was threatening a few seconds ago was kissing her. Correction, was now making out with her. Anko broke away or a bit of air. As she did, Naruto drove a knee into her back, making her cry out in pain. Naruto grabbed her by the trench coat and threw her off. Naruto took advantage of this and ran for his life. Anko growled as she got up and pain subsided. "I'm gonna kill that runt." She did not like having her emotions played with. Naruto was running down the halls like mad. The last thing he wanted was to be killed by some angered snake woman. He ran until he reached a room and ran in. Naruto locked the door behind him. He turned around and gave a calming breath to bring his heart rate down. He looked and saw which room he was in. He found that he was in his trophy room. Naruto had gotten a few things in his short career as a ninja. He looked and saw a large cleaver-like sword. The sword that belonged to Zabuza Momochi, the demon of the bloody mist. Naruto at the man's request took his sword and put it here. He felt bad putting such a weapon away to gather dust, but heavy weapons were not really his forte. He then saw on the shelf next to the sword the shattered mask of a hunter nin. Naruto had taken this from Haku, Zabuza's so-called tool. Naruto took the mask, a reminder of the brief friendship the two had. Naruto saw Kusanagi perched on the shelf next to it. "Old memories?" said a voice behind him. Naruto looked to see Anko before turning back to them. "Yeah, just some old." "Wait. You." Anko tackled Naruto again and pinned him again. This time to have his legs pinned as well as his arms and making sure she kept her head a good distance so he couldn't kiss her. Anko grinned sadistically as snakes came out of her sleeves and bound Naruto's arms and legs. She reached into her weapons pouch and pulled out a kunai. Anko raised the kunai when, "Stop," said a silent voice. Anko looked around and then looked down at the kid. "You say something?" Naruto shook his head no. It was then that Anko noticed that the kusangi was giving off a slightly glow. Naruto noticed it too. The snakes on the blonde's wrists and ankles slithered off and got a good distance away from the two. Anko got up and walked over to the sword of her former sensei. As she approached, the glow got slightly brighter. Anko reached out and then touched it. As it did, there was bright flash of purple chakra. Naruto covered his eyes and looked to see that Anko was now holding two swords. One had a green blade and the hilt made the blade look like it was coming out of a small green snake's mouth complete with fangs. Above his snake's head there was the kanji for emerald viper. The second sword had purple blade and the hilt made it look like the blade was coming out of the mouth of purple cobra. Above the snake's head there was the kanji for dark poison. "Okay," Anko said. "What in the heck is this?" "I read about this," Naruto said. "I think that sword was sentient. The reason it was glowing was because it sensed you as its next wielder. I think it only changed that way to suit its wielder." "Cool," Anko said as she looked at her new swords. "You know," Naruto said, "I would be happy to teach you my sword style, but there is a condition." "What's that?" Anko asked. "I'd be willing to tell you over dinner," Naruto said slyly. "You stare an angered woman in the face and then you ask her out?" Anko asked, earning a nod and from Naruto, and she grinned. "I like your style. So tonight around 6? Just then an Anbu appeared and said, "Namikaze-san, the Hokage has asked to see you." "Looks like we'll have to hold off on that date," Naruto said with a sad smile. "It's cool," Anko said. She walked out shaking her butt, making Naruto stare. "Call me cutie." Naruto blushed and Anko giggled as she walked outdoor with her two new swords. A few minutes later, Naruto walked into the Hokage's office to find Kakashi along with Team Guy. "What's going on, Ba-chan?" Naruto asked. He ducked to avoid a punch to the face. "Naruto," Tsunade said, "you and Kakashi here have been selected to help Guy and his team on a mission that they accepted yesterday." "What mission is that exactly?" Naruto asked. "To protect a movie crew as they film their latest movie in Snow Country," Tsunade answered, earning a raised eyebrow from Naruto. "Why are ninja needed for that?" Naruto asked. The client didn't explain. Tsunade answered, "I think he was a bit paranoid." "But why me and Kakashi?" Naruto asked. This still wasn't adding up. "Well," Tsunade explained, "Kakashi is up to his old self when he was an Anbu captain from what I heard from some people around the village, and he knows Snow Country. I'm sending you since you do know how to handle yourself in rough situations." Tsunade had managed to heal Lee after his fight with Gaara. He was up to fighting strength, but he was still recovering. If he got in over his head, he was going to wind up painting the snow red. "Okay, I'm in," Naruto said. "Good," Tsunade said with a smile. "You'll meet with a boat driver to take you to where we last heard from them. Oh, and be sure to dress warmly." The two left and Naruto grinned at Kakashi. "You've been training, haven't you?" Naruto asked as the two made their way to where to find their boat. "I have," Kakashi said. "I wanted to make sure I could get that sword as soon as I too." Naruto grinned at the one-eyed man. Then he took out a scroll and unsealed Storm Rage. It was currently in a sheath that had the image of a wolf's head at the top and the image of lightning going down. He handed it to Kakashi, who took it grinning like mad, though you couldn't tell due to the mask. After a few minutes they arrived at their boat and rode off to Snow Country. It took them a day and they arrived at Snow Country. Naruto had switched his normal attire for a coat and shoes instead of the normal sandals. He had on a cloak that helped cover the scrolls for his swords. Kakashi didn't really have that much of a difference in attire except for a scarf he now wore around his neck. The two found that he spot that Team Naruto saw the large ship that had been used to transport the team, the client and all of the movie crew. He also saw a caravan that would be transporting all the equipment and the people. The boat arrived and a man with glasses walked up to them. "You must be the backup that strange man told us was coming," the man said. "My name is Asuma." Naruto said, holding out his hand. "The scarecrow is Kakashi." The man just eyes smiled at the guy creeping him out. "So where are the others?" Kakashi asked. Inside the caravan, Asuma answered, they've been waiting for you. The two made their way to the caravan. When they entered they were greeted to the sight of Team Guy and a black-haired woman. She wore the attire that seemed similar to a princess. Hey guys, Naruto said, getting everyone's attention. Hey Naruto, Tenten said with a happy smile and a quick hug. Yosh, Naruto, it is good to you are still as youthful as ever. Lee said, shaking Naruto's hand. Namikaze-san, Neji said. Please, Naruto said, just Naruto. I hate formalities. So what happened that made you call for backup? It's just a movie crew. That was before we realized what was really going on, Guy said, getting serious. What do you mean? Kakashi asked. This, Guy said, pointing at the woman, is Princess Koyuki. Daughter of the daimyo of the Land of Snow. I had a feeling it was something like this, Kakashi said. The woman looked up and saw Kakashi. She said, you're that Enbu that saved me when my father was murdered. Yes, Kakashi said, eyes smiling at the girl. Now why is it you called for backup? Well, Neji said, we were filming a scene for the movie when we were attacked by a group of snow ninja. They wore a strange armor that kept Tenten from hurting them with her projectiles. It also seemed to stop my fighting style from hitting their chakra points. It seemed like the only way we can get them is if we engage them in hand-to-hand combat. Their jutsu even seemed enhanced by it. Chakra armor, Kakashi stated, it seems to be stronger than before, and this jutsu enhancement feature is something new. They must have added that recently. Hey, Naruto said, speaking up, was there anything that their armor had in common, like a piece that was copied on each? The team was quiet until Tenten realized something. Yeah, she said, grinning, they each had a yin-yang symbol in one spot on their armor. What are you getting at, Naruto? Lee asked. From what I can tell that might be a weak spot, Naruto said. I think that why they all had the same symbol. If you find that spot on them then hit it. The team all nodded. They knew that if they fought them to aim for that spot. Naruto smirked to himself as the caravan started to move along the way. There was move he had been dying to try. The group traveled for quite some time. All the while Koyuki sat in silence. At one point the gang rested along an old train track to let a few people give back to nature. Hey Kakashi, Naruto said to the old scarecrow, I was wondering what happened to Koyuki and why does she seem so against going here? Well, Kakashi said, it all started when she was a girl. Her father was murdered by her uncle Doto when he started an uprising. From what I can tell the man wanted the family's treasure and was willing to do anything to get it. Naruto shook his head slightly to himself as he heard it. It seems that some people would just do anything to get money and power. Back in Konoha, a certain emo punk, a one-eyed one-armed warhawk, a pink-haired woman, and two very old geezers sneezed. Someone must be talking about me, they all thought in unison. As everyone started to get back to the caravan, one of the crew ran up to them. Sir, he yelled, Koyuki ran away again. Again? Naruto asked. She did the same thing when this whole thing started, Guy said, she really didn't want to come back here. Okay, Kakashi said, everyone spread out. If you find her, bring her back to the caravan. Right, everyone said in unison. As Naruto headed off, he felt something nagging at the back of his mind. My idiot and banshee senses are tingling, Naruto thought. I think those idiots are trying something dumb again. Oh well, just so long as he gets hurt I don't care. Back in Konoha. What do you mean you won't make Naruto make me weapons? Tsunade was having a major headache at the moment. Sasuke came in with his usual smirk and demanding that she make Naruto make him a sword or any weapon like he did the clan heads and Kakashi. Tsunade said no of course and lead her to the following argument. Her headache was getting worse and she was getting very irritable. I mean, Tsunade said, doing her best to keep her patience about her. I won't make Naruto make you a weapon because it wouldn't be in anyone's best interest, only yours. Then I'll go to the council, Sasuke said, as that had always worked in the past. He was caught by surprise when the female Kage smiled at him deviously. Don't even bother, she said, didn't you hear? The civilian council and advisors were all laid off. They don't have any position of power anymore. In other words, you won't be able to get anything from anyone in this village. So too bad, runt. Sasuke glared at the woman. And Tsunade leveled a glare right back at him. The two glared at each other for a few seconds before Sasuke turned around and stormed out the door. Tsunade then reached under the desk and pulled out a bottle of sake. She downed the whole thing in one go. Back in the land of snow, Koyuki was running through the snow and trees. In all honesty, running away from a caravan that had food and warmth was probably not the best idea in the world, but she just didn't want to go back to her old home. She had stopped to catch her breath leaning against a tree. "You really are pathetic," said a voice, causing her to jump. She spun around to see Naruto standing behind her. He had an annoyed look on your face. "Don't bother running," Naruto said. "You can try all you want, but I'll just keep finding you and dragging you back." "So are you going to comply, or am I going to have to wrap you in ninja wire and drag you back?" Koyuki gave a grunt of defeat. Naruto just grinned at her. He walked over, picking her up bridal style, making the woman blush slightly, and they started to head back for the caravan. Back at the caravan, the crew was packing up their gear. "Do you think Koyuki will be okay?" one of the workers asked the director. "If I know those ninja, they will be just fine," the director said. "And as a bonus, if we run into those snow ninja again, we can use the footage in the movie." Suddenly the ice around the tracks started to melt. Everyone looked down at the tracks that were now ice-free. "What's going on?" one of the workers asked. "Chakra," Asuma said. "It's running through the tracks and melting the ice, but then that would mean everyone get off the tracks now." The director yelled, "Something's coming this way and fast." With Naruto Koyuki, Naruto was now hefting the actress onto his back. It was good thing that Naruto trained his arms, because some of the moves he used in the Santoryu sword style put a lot of strain on a person's arms. It was probably that plus his leg strength that allowed him to lift the woman with such ease. "So you going to try and run away again?" Naruto asked. "What if I am?" Koyuki asked the blonde. "If you do," Naruto said, "then I get the chance to try out a new move involving ninja wire and some very gross slime." That was when Naruto heard something coming down the tunnel. Naruto's eyes widened in fear when he realized that it was in fact a very big train. Naruto could do the only thing that managed to go through his mind at the moment. He ran like heck. "Why are you even bothering to run?" Koyuki yelled at boy, "We're going to die anyway. Will you shut up already?" Naruto growled, "I've heard people say that to me all my life, and just like them I'm going to prove you wrong." Naruto then started to pump chakra into his legs to get a little extra speed. It worked as he started to pull ahead of the train a little. A few seconds later the two arrived at the end of the tunnel. Naruto then jumped to the side of the tracks to avoid getting crushed by the train. After they jumped out of the way, the thing came to a screeching halt. Naruto and Koyuki lay in the snow. Naruto then, to Koyuki's complete and total surprise, started to laugh. "What's so funny?" she asked. "When you look death in the face like that," Naruto said, "you start to laugh at the fact that you managed to beat it." Koyuki was silent as she just stared at the boy. At that moment 4 figures appeared on the train. 3 males and 1 female. The first male was tall and thin with silver hair and had on a strange suit. Naruto noticed that he had a yin-yang symbol on his shoulder, as did one of the other males. The male mentioned was rather large man with a mechanical device on his arm. The only female among them was also tall and had pink hair, reminding him of a certain pink-haired banshee. "I hope she's not like her," Naruto thought as he looked at the woman. The final figure was a broad-muscled man wearing regal-looking clothes. Koyuki looked at the man with a look of shock and fear on her face. "I take it that he is your uncle Doto," Naruto said as he saw the terrified look on the princess's face. "I happen to be," said the man. "Now would you be so kind as to hand over my niece so I can have a little discussion with her?" "Sorry, old man," Naruto growled as he went through hand signs and drew out 2 swords, "but I don't hand over princesses to evil tyrants. It's not in my job description." At that moment the others showed up. "Roga," Kakashi growled as he saw the man with silver hair. "Hitaki," Roga grinned as he saw the masked man. "I see you got a new toy. Let's see if you can use them." Doto knew that this was going to result in a fight and said, "I'll let you play. I'll wait for you to finish." Doto was then lowered down back into the train and was currently safe, seeing the Genin, Chunin and Jonin present had to double team to take on their enemies. The larger man jumped down and Naruto stood at the ready with both swords at the ready. The larger man noticed an interesting design on both. The first one was Shadow Fox. The second though was new one. It had a bluish blade with the image of 2 tails at the bottom of the blade and the kanji for twin fireballs in kanji. "Nice swords, little man," the large man said. "Let's see if you know how to use them." The large man gripped his mechanical arm and the hand shot off. Naruto jumped to the side. He swung twin fireballs and cut the string that kept it attached. Naruto then charged at each man, both swords drawn. He swung one and it made contact with the armor, resulting in a loud clang. The two then held each other in a grappling contest. Ten was fighting the female of the snow ninja. Instead of throwing things though, she was keeping it close with a bow staff. Each time she hit, she was trying to make a shot for the Ting Yang mark. Unfortunately, it was hard to reach because the thing was on her back instead of her shoulder like her comrades. The woman then grabbed the staff in one hand and then she grabbed and lifted Ten up by the throat. "I grow tired of this, you brat," the woman growled. "Did you really think that you would be able to beat me that easily?" "I wasn't trying to beat you," Ten said, "just distracting you." The woman rose an eyebrow just in time for Neji to come up from behind and sink a kunai into the symbol on her back. The symbol shattered, revealing an orb. Neji made a quick shot to her back, making her drop Ten due to the pain, and he attacked a quick explosive note to the orb. She growled and glared at the two with a look that promised pain. Meanwhile, Lee had joined into the fight. Naruto jumped back and put away his swords. He grinned at He-Man, which managed to frustrate the man. The large man charged. Though his mechanical arm couldn't be shot, it could still make a nasty club. Lee jumped up and yelled, "Leaf Hurricane." The kick made contact with the symbol on the man's shoulder, cracking it. "Nice one, Lee," Naruto said. "Now it's my turn." Naruto ran at the man and sent a kick to the man's face. Neck. The man hit the ground on his back, but Naruto wasn't done yet. Shoulder. A strong kick hit the man in the shoulder and made him yell out in pain. Ribs. Saddle. Chest. Legs. The first one hit him in the back, the second one knocked him down to the ground, the third formed a few cracks in the ground, and the final one made the man roll backwards a bit. Naruto looked at Lee, who nodded. During the ride here on the caravan, the two came up with an idea for a move and a plan should they get attacked by these guys again. Lee nodded and then ran up the side of the mountain using his speed. "Hey fat man," Naruto said, "is that all you got?" The man growled menacingly and charged at Naruto with the intent to flatten him. Naruto just stood there, hands crossed over his chest under his cloak. Then he called out, "Anti-manner kick course." Naruto's leg shot straight up and nailed the man in the chin, sending him flying up. Naruto then used his own speed and ran up the side of the mountain. "Now you two," he yelled down to Ten and Neji as they were in on it. Ten grabbed the pink-haired girl and spun her around, then she focused chakra into the explosive tag on her back. Then the thing exploded. It sent Ten back a bit and sent a snow ninja flying, screaming as she did. Naruto saw her coming. He and Lee were now above the man they were fighting. The two stood back to back and locked arms. Then they shot off the side using their leg strength and aimed themselves at the snow ninja. Then they both called out, "Double high-grade mince meat." The toe sent out multiple random kicks that sent the man flying at the pink-haired woman. As they made contact, the both of the orbs in their armor reached it and resulted in a weird light show just before an explosion. The two now lay on the ground, either dead or out cold. It was hard to tell. Meanwhile, Guy and Kakashi were double-teaming Roga. Kakashi was using his sword with surprising efficiency since Ha hadn't used one for a really long time. Ryga was trying to dish out some damage with a jutsu, but Guy kept getting in the way. Finally, Kakashi decided to try out the feature in his sword. Kakashi closed his eyes as he focused his chakra into the blade of the sword, which started to crackle with electricity. Suddenly the sword started to give off the chirping sound of the Reikiri. Roga heard it and grinned. He knew his armor would be able to take it. It was then that something strange happened. Instead of it just going like the Reikiri, it began to focus and gave off a screeching sound. Kakashi didn't have any idea what the heck was going on, but he decided to go with it. He charged at Roga. Roga panicked and managed to knock the taijutsu specialist away. He went through hand signs and yelled, "Ice style, wolf fang avalanche." The snow on the mountain started to fall and formed large wolves. Kakashi grinned under his mask and dodged each wolf. The last one came close to him and would have crunched him if it weren't for a large rock that came out of nowhere and flattened the massive thing. Kakashi didn't have any time to wonder what just happened. He swung his sword and cut through the chakra field that was up that protected the ninja in front of him. The symbol on his arm shattered and Roga jumped back. "Do you think that's going to stop me?" he asked. "No," Kakashi said as he vanished and reappeared behind Roga, "but this should." He grabbed onto Roga and the end jumped in the air, taking the snow ninja with him. The two flipped in the air and then dropped back down. While ninjutsu and genjutsu are useful, Kakashi said as they fell, a ninja still has taijutsu. You rely on that armor too much. That was the last Roga heard before he met the ground. It may have been cushioned by snow, but it was still enough to make the guy hurt and knock him out. Doto rose up from the train and saw that his soldiers had been defeated. I must admit I'm impressed, Doto said with a grin. I never thought my elites would be beaten by kids. Doto. Everyone turned to see Asuma wearing battle armor along with a lot of other men. All of them were people who were loyal to Koyuki's father. Doto Fukizame. Asuma yelled, with me stand men who will follow your tyranny no longer. On this day you will breath no more. Author's note. I know I did this out of sequence, but I just wanted to give Naruto a reason to do something in this scene. The men all charged at the train with the intent of killing the man who stood on top of it. Doto gave a nod with a sadistic smile. The side of the train cars opened and revealed a few snow ninja next to a bunch of kunai launchers. Doto nodded again and the launchers fired. A lot of men were struck down by the projectiles. Soon only Asuma stood. He was then shot down by one last shot. Everyone looked on in horror. Naruto looked at the sight of dark anger burning deep within him. Doto laughed cruelly at the massacre before him. Naruto finally snapped. He yelled out in a complete rage, getting all to look at him. Naruto growled. He went through hand signs, bringing out bloody sand and twin fireballs again. The genjutsu on Naruto lifted in his anger. Everyone's jaws dropped as the black foxtail came into view. Another shock was what looked like the ghost of a second tail along with it. Doto's eyes were wide. Was this kid a demon? Naruto jumped up in the air and called out his attack. Two-sword style. Demon style. Demonic Castle Gate. Naruto swung his swords and a huge blast of chakra was shot. Doto was smart enough to get off the train when the blonde jumped in the air. The force of the blast actually split the train in half. Everyone just stared in shock at the pure strength shown by the young blonde. How strong is this kid? Everyone thought at the same time. Naruto calmed down. He then saw everyone staring at the tail on his backside. Ten looked about ready to explode with something. Out with it, Naruto said, crossing his arms. I know I'm going to kill my reputation with this, Ten said, but, kawaii. She leapt forward and started petting Naruto's tail. Naruto just purred and started to rub up against Ten since it felt really nice. A scream alerted them that Koyuki was in trouble. Everyone turned to see Doto standing behind them with Koyuki under his arm. He too was wearing chakra armor. Unlike the gray suits that his elites wore, his was black and the yin-yang symbol was on his chest. If you'll excuse, Doto said, picking up his niece, me and my niece here have some business to attend to. The man then sprouted mechanical wings from his back and flew off. They're getting away, Ten yelled. Oh no they're not, Naruto growled as went through hand signs and took out Raging Storm. Naruto cut his thumb on the blade and ran it up the blade. Then he slammed it into the ground and yelled, summoning jutsu. There was a large plume of smoke. When it cleared, it showed Naruto on a massive hawk. Follow those two, Naruto said. Then he turned to his friends and said, I'll explain later. The hawk flew off after the two, but Dot had a really good head start. After a while of flying, the uncle and niece landed in front of a well that was in the middle of a large circle of ice pillars. Doto sneered and ripped the necklace that was around the princess's neck. Finally, Doto said, grinning, the treasure of the Fukizame clan is mine. He slid the crystal into a slot. And the ground shook. Doto grinned. If it was this kind of reaction, then the amount of money must have been massive. Suddenly there was burst of steam and the temperature started to rise. The snow melted and grass and a few flowers sprung up. What is this? Koyuki asked, to no one in particular. A heat generator? Doto asked. This is the treasure of the Fukizame clan? Darn you, brother. Hey. The two turned to see Naruto riding on the eagle he summoned. Doto grinned. He found something that he was able to take out his frustrations on. All right kid, you want to play? Doto asked as he went through hand signs. Then come on. Black Dragon Blizzard. Doto drew back his fist and let loose a punch that sent out a dragon made of black snow flying at Naruto. Naruto jumped off the eagle and landed safely across from Doto. Unfortunately, Doto was faster than Naruto thought and wound up getting lifted up off the ground by Doto. I've had it with you, brat. Doto yelled as he slammed Naruto into the ground, sending him under the ice. Koyuki called out Naruto's name as he fell beneath the surface. Under the ice, Naruto felt the cold water freeze him. Naruto growled slightly as he sank. He wasn't about to die now, as he thought that a bluish-purplish chakra ran over him. It formed a ghost of a fox teal next to the one Naruto already had. Then it burst, forming a real one. Naruto still had some of the chakra from the second demon sword. It reacted with his will to live and resolve. Naruto had just gotten stronger. Above the ice, Doto was walking away when the ground started to shake. Dot turned just in time to see a lot of Narutos explode from the ice. Payback time, jerk, they all said at once. Grr, how many times do I have to kill you, brat? Doto yelled in outrage as he went through hand signs again. Twin Dragon Blizzard. Doto fired dragons made completely out of black snow out of his hands. The two dragons converged and destroyed the clones. Doto grinned, until he saw that there were two left. Obviously the original and a clone. One was spinning around like a top and the other was just standing there at the ready. When the one spinning stopped, he had his arms up in a defensive position with one leg raised. To Doto's surprise, the leg was glowing bright red and was giving off a lot of heat. Devil leg, the Naruto said as he smirked. The Naruto with the devil leg vanished from sight and the other one disappeared as well. He appeared in front of Doto in a handstand and yelled, "Chin." Doto was sent flying upwards and the Naruto who kicked him burst into smoke. The Naruto coming down on him had the devil leg straight up in the air and was ready to bring it down. As Doto grew closer, he did yelling, "Flaming shot." Doto took the shot right to the face and was sent flying down into the ground. His face was burnt from the attack and more the likely that plus the force of him hitting solid ice killed him. Naruto's leg cooled off. He grinned and then fell unconscious due to the stress of both the attack and that he was tired from his second tail growing. Naruto winced as he woke up to the sight of a white ceiling. He always hated hospitals. One thing, he always felt like he was in a prison when he was in one. Second, some of the doctors had tried to kill him whenever he was there. And worst of all, they didn't serve any ramen. Though now that he thought that, it seemed kind of stupid to him now. "Are you all right, Naruto?" a female voice asked. Naruto turned to find the source of the voice was Tenten. "Yeah, I'm fine," the blonde said as he rose up in his hospital bed. "Hey Naruto," the weapons mistress asked, "what happened to your tail?" Naruto turned back to see that he only had one tail again. What happened to my other tail? Naruto thought as he looked at his now alone tail. "Kid, I told you the swords were sentient," the fox said. "The swords sensed your will to beat Doto. That's the only reason that the sword gave you access to its full power. Since that's over, it drew the power back." Tenten looked at Naruto as it had seemed he had gone into a deep thinking trance as he listened to the fox tell him why he was down to one tail again. She waited until Naruto opened his eyes to see her looking at his inquisitively. "Naruto?" she asked, "are you all right?" "I'm fine," he answered, "I was just deep in thought. The swords I have are sentient in a sense. It sensed that I wanted to have the strength to kill Doto. Once the fight was done and out of the way, it took the power it gave me back." Tenten nodded as she heard him answer. Then she remembered that she had seen Naruto's leg glowing when she saw the fight from a distance. Her curiosity reared itself again. "Naruto," she said, breaking Naruto from his thoughts, "I saw that you used this move that made your leg glow. What was that?" "That was the devil leg," Naruto explained as he got up and put on his pants. Tenten blushed as she saw Naruto's muscled chest. It used enormous friction to heat up the leg and cause extensive damage to whoever is unfortunate enough to get hit by it. "The sudden burst of chakra allowed me to use it." "What do you mean?" Tenten asked. Lee, Guy, Neji, and Kakashi had come into the room and heard Naruto explain. They were curious too. "If you use the move before you're ready, it can burn your leg," Naruto said. "Even if you are ready, it can hurt you if you use it too much or if you use it too long. I'm not sure I can do it again with how I am right now." Everyone nodded. The dynamic duo nodded as well, since they knew that certain taijutsu moves can inflict damage on the person who used it. It was important to know one's limitations. If you didn't, you would wind up killing yourself in vain if your opponent survives. Later, Naruto and the others came out to find a large parade going through the city that they were staying in. In the middle of it was what resembled a throne, and on it sat Koyuki. The people were rejoicing the return of their princess. After the whole thing, everyone went to the palace and had a huge after-party, most of which was spent outside in the garden. Guy was making sure to keep Lee away from any sake since the last time he saw the result was utterly disastrous. Naruto was enjoying him as he drank and goofed around with his friends. Then, to the utter shock of everyone, Neji actually let himself unwind. He was laughing and having a good old time. Ten was just talking with Naruto, trying to get to know him better while they were. She finally got to ask about the hawk that the blonde had brought out. Some of my swords come with summoning contracts, Naruto explained to the inquisitive weapons mistress. I channel chakra and use the sword in a certain way I can bring out the animal that I am imaged at the bottom of the blades. I see you're enjoying the party, Koyuki said as she approached the group of ninja. We are, Naruto said, grinning at the princess. I guess you won't be able to continue your career as an actress, huh? Now, she said, taking out a script, who said that I was going to quit being an actress. I think I'll be able to manage both. That script, Kakashi gasped as he read the title. Oh, I almost forgot, Koyuki said, grinning at Naruto. She bent over and kissed the blonde on the mouth. Naruto froze up for a second, then he kissed back. If either of them had noticed, there was a dark glare on Ten's face. When Koyuki broke away, she looked in Naruto's eyes. That was a thank you for protecting me so well, she said, smirking at the shocked and slightly embarrassed look on the blonde's face. Ten growled slightly as the woman walked away and a group of kids came up begging for autographs. Before this mission she would have just ignored them, but now she was signing them with a smile on her face. Back in Konoha, Tsunade was going through her files. She had some feeling that there was something that she was missing. She knew that Danzo and the council advisors were all up to something. She just didn't really know what. After a few minutes of searching, she found something interesting. It looked like a file that belonged to Itachi Uchiha. She read it and was growing steadily more interested. Tsunade? Shizune asked as she walked into the room. What is it? I've been going over some files, the female Kage said. According to these, there don't seem to be any mental reasons for him to try and kill his clan. In other words, he was never crazy at all. What are you saying? Shizune asked. I think, Tsunade said, that someone's been hiding secrets. I also found this. The busty Kage took out a birth certificate. This is the birth certificate for one Sayuka Haruno. According to this, she should be Sakura's older sister. What are you getting at? Shizune asked. I think, Tsunade said, we just stumbled upon somebody's dirty little secrets. Tsunade called in a few Anbu that to her knowledge were completely loyal to Sarutobi before he retired. Speaking of the old man, since his retirement he has since gone to his clan complex and spends most of his time goofing off with his grandson and watching TV. I need you to search and find anything in the possession of Danzo that has anything to do with Itachi Uchiha. I also need some of you to look through some things of the Haruno clan. Yes ma'am, the Anbu all said in unison. A few days later, Naruto and his group returned home. As soon as they got home, they were besieged by a bunch of fans. What's going on? Naruto asked. You don't know? A girl asked as she held up a movie poster. All their jaws dropped as they saw it. In the picture was Koyuki dressed as Princess Gale, a character she was famous for playing. Along with her in the picture was a picture of Naruto with two swords drawn and pointed down, Ten twirling a kunai on her hand, Neji with his Byakugan activated and in a Jiyuken stance, Lee holding up a clenched fist, Kakashi with his new sword held out lit up with electricity, and Guy with his arms crossed. The background was a large mountain and above them in the sky was a transparent image of Doto with an evil grin. In bold letters at the bottom was the title, Ninja Clash in the Land of Snow. Whoa, Naruto said, is this settled? Looks like we're going to be famous, huh? Yeah, Ten said. Well, Kakashi said, I don't know about you guys but I'm going to go see the movie I'm in. Hey, wait up, Naruto yelled after him as they ran toward the theater. When they saw the movie they were surprised that they saw most of what the movie portrayed in a regular Princess Gale movie. It showed them the fight between Team Guy and the Snow Ninja and how they only managed to run them off with the damage inflicted by the combined taijutsu skills of Guy, Lee, and Neji. Apparently they edited in a conversation between the team and Princess Gale where the ninja offered their services to help her along the way and to call for backup. Everything after that was straightforward from the train to Doto's death. Though they cut the part out where Koyuki ran away. They even showed the kiss scene between Naruto and Koyuki. Though during Doto's death they changed the animation to where Naruto's leg when he used the devil leg to let out rays of rainbow chakra when it hit. As soon as the move was over, Naruto was approached by Anko. "Hey there kid," Anko said grinning, "I see you managed to make it big." "Yeah," Naruto said, "I guess you still want that date, huh?" "Yep," Anko answered. When everyone who was in hearing distance heard this, they felt their hearts stop. Naruto and Anko were actually going on a date together? A lot of people ran outside to see if it was the end of the world. "So," Anko said, 6 o'clock your place?" "Yeah," Naruto said, to the purple-haired Kuoichi. "See you then cutie," she said. 10-10 was growing more jealous by the second. First it was the princess and now it was the snake mistress. What's next? A girl from the outside world comes and tries to seduce Naruto. She was going to have to make her move on him fast, otherwise she would never get her chance at the guy. After that everyone went home. The girls went to the hot spring to relax. They kind of needed it after a very stressful mission like that. Everyone spent most of the day relaxing. Of course Jiraiya got caught peeking and girls got all tense beating the snot out of him. They spent more time relaxing and then they all went home. Later 6 p.m. Naruto stood in front of a mirror wearing a white shirt with black jeans and a black jacket. His hair was combed making it only slightly less spiky and he had splashed on a bit of cologne. He grinned as he looked at himself in the mirror. As he finished looking at himself he heard a knock at the door. He answered the door and nearly fainted at the sight. At the door stood Anko wearing a green dress with a yellow sash running across her waist. Naruto could smell the perfume on her and he liked the smell. The snake mistress smiled, a real genuine smile, and reached out and shut Naruto's previously hanging jaw. "You're gonna want to shut your mouth kid," she said in a flirty tone, "you'll catch flies and that's a major turn off." Naruto chuckled nervously and blushed slightly as the girl smiled at him. The two then headed for the restaurant. The restaurant in question was called the Jade Sparrow. It was one of the more prestigious eateries in the village and Anko was surprised Naruto could afford this place. "How can you afford to eat here?" Anko asked as they walked in. "You see," Naruto said, "when I got my inheritance it included a vast sum of money that both of my parents had. In other words, my family is pretty much stinking filthy rich." "Excuse me sir," the greeter said, "but I don't see your name on the list here." Naruto looked at the woman. He had made a reservation long before he and his date had come here. He knew that she was one of the people who hated him, but he knew the best way to get past her. "I think I can get us in," Naruto said taking out some money, "will this do?" The woman's eyes turned into Ryo signs as she reached to take the money. As she was about to reach it though Naruto closed his hand. Naruto said wagging his finger, "Table and meal first. Then you get your pay." The woman growled slightly and grabbed 2 menus. She then led the two to a booth in the back. After that she went to go get a waiter and or waitress to serve them. "So," Anko said, "what were you talking about there being a catch to me learning your family style?" "Well," Naruto said, "the only way for you to learn is for you to marry me." "I'd have to marry you?" Anko asked. She was surprised this kid was bringing it up. "Well," Naruto said, "we can either do that or you can come up with a style of your own using the 2 swords. I have seen people come up with their own style before." As Anko was thinking this over a waitress came over. She was looking at Naruto flirtatiously since unlike the greeter she wasn't a hater. "What would you two like to drink?" she asked. "I'll take a sweet tea," Anko said. "I'll take a Diet Coke," Naruto said. "Coming right up," she said casting another glance at the blonde. "So," Anko said as they waited for their drinks, "what would you recommend for a sword style for my new toys?" "Well," Naruto said, "I'd suggest either a style where you strike fast and end your opponent quickly like the way a snake strikes when its opponent is vulnerable, or a style where you bide your time and then strike." Anko was thinking it over. She was trying to put it all together. As she wasn't thinking the waitress came back with their drinks. "Are you two ready to order?" the waitress asked. "Yeah," Naruto said, "I'll have the duck with orange sauce." "I'll have the sushi," Anko said smiling at the blonde. After that the two just began to talk about how things had been. She had seen Naruto's movie and she asked what it was like to star in the movie and if that is how things really happened. The blonde happily filled her in on what really happened and what things were exaggerated. When their food arrived they ate heartily. After they ate Naruto paid the bill and gave a small tip to the waitress. As they left he slipped the money for the greeter. "I can't believe you actually gave her all that money," Anko said as they left the restaurant. "I wonder how she'll react when she finds out that most of that was just chocolate wrapped up in a very convincing-looking foil," Naruto muttered. Anko looked at the boy then back at the restaurant. Then she laughed a bit. She grinned at Naruto and said, "Kid, you really know how to make people mad," she said. "You're not going to try that on me sometime, are you?" "No," Naruto answered. "I'm not about to pull a mean little trick like that on my date." Anko giggled slightly and wrapped her arm around the boy's neck. The two then walked down the road a bit and found themselves at a very interesting-looking club. After a little coaxing from Anko the two went in. When they walked in there was the sounds of loud music and the sight of bright flashing lights. There was also a hint of danger due to the fact that there were a few bouncers around the place. After getting inside the two immediately hit the dance floor. The two danced for hours and had the time of their lives. When it was over Anko was exhausted, but Naruto, who was a stamina freak, had enough energy to last much longer. He then led Anko home. The snake woman looked at Naruto gratefully. She smiled at him as he held her hands in front of her home. "I guess this is where I go home, huh?" Naruto asked. "Not quite," Anko said grinning. "This is the part where you kiss me goodnight." The blonde boy leaned up and kissed Anko. Unlike the kiss he gave her to keep her from killing him, this one was much gentler and he didn't use any tongue. The snake mistress wrapped her arms around the blonde-haired Chunin as they continued to kiss. Eventually Naruto needed air and he broke the kiss. This in turn earned a groan of disappointment from the woman. "Good night," Naruto said as turned and left. Anko walked into her house. As Naruto left he heard her yell, "Woohoo! Yeah baby." Naruto chuckled to himself and vanished as he went home. The next day Naruto woke up and was making breakfast for himself when an Anbu appeared via Shushin. "Namikaze-san," the Anbu said, "your presence has been requested by the Hokage in about 2 hours." Naruto nodded at the man who then vanished in a swirl of leaves. Naruto spent the next 2 hours eating his breakfast, showering, and getting his clothes and weapons. As he was leaving he was approached by old man Jiraiya. "Hey kid," the old man said, "how are things?" "Good. What's up with you Ero-sanin?" Naruto asked as Jiraiya growled. "Great," Jiraiya muttered to himself. "First it was your father and now you. I tell you there's no respect for a man of my profession." "You mean peeking on women while they're in the hot spring?" Naruto asked matter-of-factly. This in turn got a lot of females glaring at Jiraiya. The man took the hint and ran away followed by a horde of women from the APA or the Anti-Pervert Association. Naruto continued his walk to the tower when Jiraiya showed up again, having narrowly escaped from the women with his body intact. "So kid," Jiraiya said, "I was wondering, how would you like to go on a 3-year training trip with me?" "A trip for training," Naruto deadpanned. "A trip where you will most likely abandon me to go do some of your research for your perverted book? You can count me out, old man." "At least consider it," Jiraiya said. "There are some pretty strong characters on the Akatsuki and you'll need to be really powerful if you wind up going up against their leader." "And just who is that leader?" Naruto asked. "If you want to find out you'll have to face him yourself," Jiraiya said grinning. Naruto glared at the old man and decided to teleport to the Hokage's office just so he didn't have to deal with this perverted old goat. Naruto vanished in a sudden swirl of flames, catching the old guy by surprise. This was an ability he acquired when he mastered Heaven's Phoenix. In the aftermath of the sudden burst of fire it left the old man covered with a bit of soot and coughing up a little bit of smoke. "No respect," Jiraiya muttered as he spat out some soot. Naruto reappeared in the Hokage's office in a flash of fire, scaring the daylights out of the people present. Naruto found that Sasuke and Sakura were both there as well. "Looks like the Hokage finally came to her senses," Sasuke arrogantly thought. "What's up, Ba-chan?" Naruto asked the older woman. "I called you all here to share something with the three of you," the woman said. "More with these two than you, Naruto. Certain information that was denied to these two for some very long years." "What information could possibly be important to me?" Sasuke asked with a raised eyebrow. "How about the reason that your brother killed the clan?" Tsunade asked. That got an immediate reaction from the normally brooding Uchiha. He looked at her like he was expecting her to give him what he wanted. And for once in the past few weeks he actually got it. "This was found in a file in Danzo's office," Tsunade said as she took out a file. "Find anything strange?" She took out a picture from the file. The picture was of Itachi's eyes when he had his Mangekyo Sharingan activated. Sasuke looked at the picture with a puzzled look on his face. That was when he noticed something. There was a slightly line around the white of the eye and there seemed to be a glare on it from a nearby light. That wasn't something the eye could reflect unless the person was wearing contacts. Itachi, Sasuke muttered, was framed? Yes, Tsunade said. In addition, he had to leave the village, but he was able to plant himself as a spy at a gang called the Akatsuki. He's been feeding us information for the past few years. My brother never murdered the clan? Sasuke asked, trying to comprehend that the fact that he had been training to kill an innocent man. Yes, Tsunade said. From this file I've learned that Danzo was the one who sent in a member of his root division, which was supposed to be disbanded. He did this in an attempt to gain your favor through offering you power and turn you into his puppet. The advisors were in on this little scheme. Sasuke was currently thrown for a loop. He backed up a bit, his hand on his forehead. He was having some trouble processing the fact that all these years he was just being used as a pawn by some cripple and two old farts. Sakura tried to put an arm around him to comfort her crush, but Naruto stopped her. He just learned a lot of info, he said. I don't think now would be a good time to try and get close to him. That's not all though, Tsunade said, getting the boy's attention. What else is there? The young Uchiha asked. It seems your clan had a hand in the Kyuubi attack a few years ago, she said, making the boy's eyes widen as well as hers. Danzo also appeared to be in league with the traitor and now deceased Orochimaru, the older woman continued. Apparently he along with a few Uchiha put it under a genjutsu that made it go berserk. The Uchiha were planning on using it in coup against the village. If it had succeeded, the Uchiha would be in control of the village and all the other clans, shinobi and civilian, would be treated as slaves. Sasuke was thrown for another loop. He was sitting down in a chair, a faraway look on his face. His eyes shadowed by his hair. Everything was quiet for a minute. Then Sasuke broke the uneasy silence. All this time, he said quietly, then a little louder, all this time, I've been used and trying to avenge a clan of traitor? The lady Cage nodded and Sasuke got up. Right now he had a lot to think about. Wow, Naruto said. I guessed that the Uchiha had some dirty little secrets, but I never would have thought that it was going to be that bad. Sakura was completely silent for once in her life. The clan that she had thought was so great at one time was actually just a bunch of traitors. Then she remembered that the Hokage said something about a truth for her. What is it you have to tell me? The pink-haired girl asked, thought she was starting to hope that it didn't have anything to do with her clan. Sakura, Tsunade said, I trust you know of a girl named Sakuya who would be your sister if she were alive today. Yes, Sakura said, she was killed by the Kyuubi attack. Not exactly, the woman said, taking out another file. This one had the picture of the Haruno clan symbol. She wasn't killed. In fact, she was alive much longer than that. What do you mean? Sakura asked, a little scared of what she was saying. I trust that you know of why Naruto was hated? Tsunade asked. Why yes, the girl admitted after getting a questioning glare from the older woman. My mother told me about Kyuubi and how she killed my sister and my grandfather, but what does this have to do with anything? Well, Tsunade said, as you know, Naruto has very few supporters. A few years ago one of these supporters was your sister. She was? Sakura asked. Yes, Tsunade said. According to this, your sister wasn't rally liked due to her connection with Naruto. A few days after she was found helping Naruto, she vanished. No blood, no DNA, not a single trace. What does this have to do with my clan? Sakura asked. Well, Tsunade said, I trust that Naruto may be able to help you there. Naruto, have you studied sealing yet? Yeah, Naruto answered his godmother's question. Why? This file holds instructions for a seal that can alter memories and delete old ones. I believe a seal such as this is on Sakura's person. More than likely around the neck or head area. Naruto looked at Sakura, then he saw her pink hair had grown back a bit. He walked behind her and moved the hair up, revealing a strange mark on the back of the girl's neck. I think I found it, Naruto said. Good, the woman said, now I want you to unseal it. The file doesn't says what happened when she disappeared. Maybe we can find out what did happen. Naruto put his hands on the back of Sakura's neck, on hand covering the other. He looked at Sakura, who nodded at him in return. Naruto nodded back and focused his chakra into the seal. Sakura, Shea wide dn and her pupils went wide as she saw a memory that was sealed away. Lost memory begin. Sakura looked up at her father and mother who had strapped her and her sister down to a table. "What are you doing?" Sakura asked as tears started to fall from her eyes. "This girl," Sakura's father spat, "has been in league with the demon. From what we have seen you have too." Sakura had been trying to befriend Naruto after he saved her from some bullies who kept making fun of her because of her looks. "No, I haven't," Sakura tried to say but was slapped by her mother. "Don't lie to us," her mother growled, "we're going to turn you into the perfect tool to get back at that demon and get some status with the Uchiha clan's final member." She nodded at her husband. Her husband went through a few hand signs and put on hand on both of his daughters' stomachs. Both girls screamed in pain as the ritual started. Sakuya slowly began to turn to chakra and flow inside of her sister. Sakura screamed as she felt the foreign chakra enter her system. Finally it was done. As she did, her mother picked Sakura up and with a paintbrush branded a seal on the back of her daughter's neck. Sakura fell asleep as her memory was jumbled. She saw that the memory of her sister died and was replaced with loneliness of being an only child. Then her memory changed from Naruto saving her from those bullies to Sasuke. As she slept, her parents grinned. All was going to get better for them. Lost memory end. As the memory faded, Sakura fell to her knees and started sobbing uncontrollably. Naruto put an arm around her to comfort her. "What happened?" Naruto asked. The distraught girl told Naruto in a very sad voice what she had seen and what her family had done to her sister. As she continued, Tsunade's grip on her desk slowly increased until it actually broke in her grasp. After a few more minutes of crying, Sakura got up and hugged Naruto tightly, sobbing apologies for how she had treated him. Naruto hugged her back and accepted the apologies wholeheartedly. "I'm going to take care of this," Tsunade growled. "What Danzo and the advisors have done counts as treason, and those two have spoke freely of an S-rank secret. They will face execution for this." Sakura nodded at the woman. Her previous sorrow gone and now replaced with an intense anger. "When?" Naruto asked. "Tomorrow," Tsunade said, grinning, "in public. It should send a message to those who oppressed you that they shouldn't have done that." Sakura got up and clenched her fist. She knew that she would have to face her parents for one more day, but it would be worth it if she could manage to avenge her sister. It was then that Sakura remembered something. That voice that was always nagging in the back of her head. Sis," she thought, "are you there?" "Yep," said a voice, "I'm here." Sakura grinned slightly to herself. Then she got up, bowed to the Hokage, and then went home. Though she wasn't really sure if she could call it her home now. Naruto decided to go home as well. He knew that he had some work to do. At the Uchiha complex, Sasuke stood above the grave of his father and mother. He looked at his fathers in disgust. His mother, though, she was a nice woman. He knew that there was no way that she could be in on the coup against the village. He looked at his father's grave and spoke. "You were my idol," he said. "All these years I wanted to avenge you and you turn out to be nothing like I thought you were. You're just a traitor who did anything he could to get power. I see that I was wrong with my life. I won't let them use me and I'll find a way to prove my brother's innocence even if I die in the process." He then turned to his mother's grave and spoke in a softer tone. "I don't know why you had to die, mother. I'm sorry that I was the reason. They wanted to use me and to do it they killed you. If can hear me, I hope that you can forgive me for how I've been over the years." In the kingdom of heaven, Sasuke's mother, Mikoto, started to cry tears of joy as she heard her son's words. She was happy that he now saw the truth and for what her husband really was. She felt a hand on her shoulder and looked to see a red-haired woman smiling. "Looks like your son has a chance at redemption, huh?" the redhead asked. "It would seem so," the Lady Uchiha answered, smiling at her son down below. Back in the realm of Earth, Sakura had arrived at home. Her parents asked her why the Hokage wanted to see her. She lied and told them it was an evaluation for an apprentice. She told them that they would be hearing her verdict in a few days. The two parents grinned as they heard this. That grin made Sakura shudder. Luckily she didn't do it on the outside. Sakura ate her dinner and went upstairs. She spent the rest of her night catching up with the sister she didn't even know she had. The next day, it was the late afternoon and everyone had been called to the arena. There wasn't a fight going on that they knew of. It was then that they saw Naruto, Sasuke, and the Godem in the middle of the arena. "Looks like the demon is finally going to get what he deserves," a civilian said, grinning happily. People of Konoha, Tsunade yelled, I have come across some very grave news. For the past few years there have been traitors in our midst. There were loud gasps as the people heard this. Others were curious as to who the traitors were. Tsunade truned and yelled, bring them out. Everyone gasped in shock as the council elders, Danzo, and the two elder Harunos were led onto the field in chains, or in Danzo's case chakra cuffs. In case you're wondering why they are here, it is for the following, Tsunade said. The council elders and Danzo are traitors for conspiring against the village. A conspiracy that led to the near extinction of the Uchiha clan and the wrongful banishment of an innocent man. In addition, Danzo allied himself with the nuke Nin Orochimaru. The Harunos are traitors for the spreading of an S-rank secret. There is only one penalty for these crimes: death. The crowd gasped as they heard that these people were going to be executed for things that they didn't even know were going on. They were also surprised that the honorable elders were traitors. Naruto, Sasuke, the Lady Cage said, turning to the two, since their crimes have affected you in some way, you shall be the ones to execute them. Any objections? Both of them shook their heads no. Naruto brought out Shadow Fox and walked over to the two Harunos. Both of them were then set down on their knees and had the necks extended for a clean cut. Any last words? The blonde asked. Yes, Sakura's father said, we hereby denounce our daughter and banish her from the clan. We would also like to say that the Shinigami will feast on your soul demon. Not likely, Naruto said as he brought up his sword and then brought it down. A few people covered their eyes as the sword cut through the two civilian clan members. In the stands, Sakura started to cry. The Haruno clan was gone. Like Naruto used to be, she was a clan-less orphan with no name. She felt an arm wrap around her and saw that it was Ino trying to comfort her in her sorry. She sent a thankful look to her former friend. Naruto turned to Sasuke, who was glaring at the three in front of him. Sasuke was about to go through hand signs for a fire jutsu when Naruto stopped him. Sasuke looked at Naruto with a puzzled look. Naruto grinned and reached behind him, taking out a scroll with the Uchiha symbol on it. He unsealed it and what came out made Sasuke's eyes widen. It was a long black katana with the image of a raven on the bottom of the blade and the kanji for Avenger written in white. Naruto handed the sword to him and Sasuke took it. As he faced the elders, they began to try to reason with him. Sasuke, please, Amora begged, we had your best interests in mind. We were going to make you the strongest Uchiha alive. Yes, Kaharu said, agreeing with Homura, we still can. All you had to do is kill the boy next to you. First of all, Sasuke said coldly, I know how to find power, but I will not let the need for it corrupt me any longer. Second, I will not kill my teammate. And before I kill you, I just want to say that this is for the death of my mother. Sasuke rose up his sword and in two swings cut the two elders down. After the bodies fell, he turned to Danzo. This, Sasuke growled, is for my brother. As Sasuke rose up his sword, a barrage of kunai were sent out at him. He jumped to the side to avoid getting cut. Then a bunch of Anbu with blank masks appeared. Each one had the kanji for root on it. They looked at the two and narrowed their eyes behind their masks. One of the Anbu picked Danzo up and the group ran for it. Oh no you don't, Naruto yelled as he went through hand signs. Sasuke did the same. Naruto. Fire style, fireball jutsu. Sasuke. Fire style, phoenix flower jutsu. The fireballs all shot out at the escaping ninja. Unfortunately, the root Anbu took all the shots that were aiming for Danzo's back. Some real Anbu showed up and clashed with the root forces. Unfortunately, Danzo was able to get away in all the confusion. Damn it, Naruto yelled as things started to settle down, he got away. He'll be back, Tsunade said, from what the old man told me he always wanted the chair as Hokage. He'll come back to try and take it. Yeah, Naruto said as Jiraiya showed up too late to help. Oh man, Jiraiya groaned, I missed the execution. Danzo got away, Tsunade said, making Jiraiya gasp. Old man, Naruto said, I want to take you up on your offer to train me. Really? He asked, looking happy. Yes, Naruto said, smirking, but on one condition. What's that? Jiraiya asked. That we do it here in the village, Naruto said, and that you let the rest of the Konoha 12 train as well. You want to include the entire Konoha 12? Jiraiya asked in complete shock at what the blonde in front of him was asking. The two were currently in Tsunade's office. He was explaining his plan to Jiraiya, and Tsunade was listening, considering whether or not she should go through with this plan. Yes, Naruto said, we both know that Danzo will try and come back. We also know that the Akatsuki will try to make their move in that time. If all 12 of us train, this village will have a great force to be reckoned with. Jiraiya understood why Naruto wanted to do this, but he didn't understand how. And just how are you planning on doing that? Jiraiya asked. I don't really know that many fighting styles, and I don't plan on making that many sages. You don't have to, Naruto said. If I know my old man, I think he has something hidden in the clan vault that could help us out. Okay, Jiraiya said, but I don't know how we're going to do this in the village. There might be some spies trying to learn our secrets. I know, Naruto said. I plan on using the training grounds underneath my home. If I remember correctly, it can be locked up for a certain amount of time, and we have enough provisions to last us that long in there. Jiraiya saw the logic in Naruto's plan. They would be away from prying eyes, and they could train all they needed to. Plus, if the Namikaze vault had all the things that they needed, then it was worth a shot. Okay, Jiraiya said. Tsunade, what do you think? I think that this is a good idea, Tsunade said. No one will know what they will be able to do or the extent of their abilities. Naruto, I give you and Jiraiya permission to take the Konoha 12 and train them for the next 3 years. This will qualify as an S-rank mission due to importance. Oh, and while you're at it, leave something for their teachers, will you? The last thing we need are our Junin falling behind. Naruto nodded. He got up and walked out the door. He had a lot to do. He only had until tomorrow till they could start training. In that time he had to convince the others to join them and figure out what they were going to train in. He was in for a busy day. Naruto then set out to find his friends. The Inuzuka complex. Naruto walked through the gate to the Inuzuka complex. Naruto walked through the main house to find Sume in the living room talking with her daughter. She noticed he had entered and she led at him warmly. Hello Naruto, Sume said. What's up? Hello Sume, Naruto said, smiling. Listen, I need to talk to you alone for a minute. Whatever you tell her you can tell me, Hana said, right Naruto-kun? Sorry Hana-chan, Naruto said regretfully, but this is something that I need to discuss with the clan head and her alone. Hana pouted slightly and got up. She smiled at Naruto before she left. So what is it you need to talk to me about? Sume asked, her former playfulness gone. Well, Naruto said, I'm starting training tomorrow in an underground base beneath my home. I know that the Akatsuki plan to make their move in about 3 years. And? Sume asked, wanting to get to the point. The thing is, Naruto said, I want your son and Akamaru to join me. What? Sume asked, getting up. You see, Naruto explained, if all 3 of us train at the rate we are, then we'll all be ready when the Akatsuki make their move. Plus we'll have a few nasty surprises for Danzo in the long run. Sume was quiet. She was considering the pros and cons of this. She sat silently for a few moments, making Naruto wonder if she was ever going to answer. I'll consider it, Sume said. I should have an answer by tomorrow. Naruto nodded. He knew that this was a big choice for a mother to make. He got up and walked out the door, a new destination in mind. Hyuga complex. Naruto walked past the 2 guards at the door. They smiled gratefully at the boy. Naruto smiled back. He walked past until another guard stopped him. State your business, the guard said in a serious tone. I'm here to talk to Hiyashi Hyuga on an important matter, Naruto explained. The guard nodded and said, head to Hiyashi's office. He is currently in a meeting with the Hyuga council. I warn you though, he may be angry when he out. Naruto nodded in understanding. The meeting with council before the civilian council was dissolved was a major pain. Naruto walked down the hall and found Hiyashi's office. As expected, it was tidy and very well organized, typical of a Hyuga. Naruto sat in the office until Hiyashi arrived. There was the sound of stomping outside and the door was opened violently and then slammed shut. Naruto looked to see Hiyashi Hyuga with a rather angry look on his face. Are you okay? Naruto asked as the Hyuga patriarch started to calm down. I'm sorry you had to see that, Hiyashi said. Those old bags of sand on the council want to brand Hinata with the caged bird seal, and they want to marry you to Hanabi. They want to do what and what? Naruto yelled. I know, Hiyashi groaned. I tried to overrule them, but my so-called father on council overruled me, and they plan on branding her tomorrow night. They also want to marry Hanabi to you, and she wants to because of the power you showed. That council is tearing my family apart. What am I going to do? I'd sooner die than let my own daughter be turned into breeding stock for my own clan. I think I can help you with this little problem, Lord Hyuga, Naruto said, grinning. How? Hiyashi looking at Naruto pleadingly, how can I save my daughter? Easy, Naruto said, I'm starting this training thing soon and I want your daughter and nephew to join me. The other clan heads' children are going to join in too. A chance for Hinata to grow stronger? Hiyashi asked. Yes, Naruto said, since it's under my home she'll be under Namikaze clan protection. She won't be branded with the seal, and if one of those old farts on the Hyuga council tries to pull something she'll deliver a grade A butt whoop. Hiyashi nodded and said, I accept. Now I just hope that Hinata is willing to do so. If she is, she will be there tomorrow. So will Neji. Naruto smiled and left the room. He had to admit this was going quite well. Yamanaka flower shop. Hey Naruto, Ino said as the blonde walked into the flower shop. Hey Ino, Naruto said, can I talk to your dad? What's up? The platinum blonde asked. It's important, Naruto whispered. Hey dad, Ino yelled, Naruto here has something to talk to you about. Send him in, Inoichi yelled as he heard his daughter. Ino watched as Naruto walked into the back to talk with her father. The door closed and she waited intensely for the blonde to walk out. She heard her father say something like, you want me to what? And she couldn't make out any more than that. After a few seconds the spiky-haired blonde walked out of the door and smiled at Ino. He then left the shop. Inoichi said, can I have a word with you? Sure dad, Ino said, getting up from the counter and walking in her father's office. Naruto just made me a very interesting offer, Inoichi said looking at his daughter. The man then relayed the deal that he and Naruto had just made. As he did, his daughter felt like her eyes were going to shoot out of her eyes and that her jaw hit the ground. She then threw her arms and yelled, woohoo! Training Ground 10. Naruto. Guy yelled as he saw the blonde approaching he and his team. What brings you here on this most youthful day? Nothing really, Naruto said. I need to talk to you and your team for a minute. What do you need of us? Lee asked in his usual manner. Hey Neji, Naruto said, how's that sword wound healing up? Fine, Neji said, me and the other branch members are working on the counter seal for the caged bird seal. And Hiyashi told me about the deal he and you made, so I already know what you're going to ask. I also believe she's already told Shino about it and his father has already accepted. What is he going to ask us, Neji-san? 1010 asked the Hyuga branch member. I'm going to ask, Naruto started, if you would join me and the rest of the Konoha 12 in a training session for the next 3 years. To train with you for 3 years? 1010 yelled, asking the boy if he really meant what he asked. Yep, Naruto said, we're going to need to be pretty strong if we're going to fight some of our future threats. Good point, Guy said as he was pondering, I'll let them train with you if you only do one thing for me. Keep Lee youthful and make him able to surpass me at some point. Right, Naruto said, I got to go take care of a few things. The blonde walked away, and then vanished in a sudden flash of fire. Meanwhile, Team 9 training ground. He wants us to do what now? Choji asked as he heard Ino. You heard me, big guy. Ino said, he wants us to train with him for the next 3 years. You saw how strong he was after 2 months of training. With 3 years of it under our belts we could very well be invincible. What a drag, Shikamaru groaned, we got more work. Although it will get my mom off my back. Yeah, Ino said, come on, go tell your parents and hope that they say yes. I get it, Ino, we need to tell our parents about this, Choji, but what about our sensei? They'll understand, Ino said, besides I think Naruto will think of something that will keep them busy. Knowing him, yeah, Choji said as he finished eating his chips. Okay, Ino said, you go tell your parents, I'll tell sensei. Tell me what? Asuma asked as he approached the group. Ino has something to tell you, sensei, Shikamaru said. Anyway, me and Choji have some business to take care of. The two then got up and left, heading for home. What is it you need to tell? The smoker asked as he looked at the young girl. Well, sensei, Ino said, me and the other Konoha 12 are going to join Naruto for a training session OFR the next 3 years. Really? Asuma asked, so what Guy was saying wasn't a complete and total crud. You know? Ino asked. Yeah, Asuma said, Naruto talked to Guy's team. From what I can tell, Guy told all of us individually. The other teams have also started telling them. Wow, Ino said, well, I'm going to get ready for the session. It starts tomorrow. Asuma nodded at the girl. He did feel bad that he wouldn't be able to help his students reach high levels of power. He then knew that if they reached that power that they would be incredible. He smiled to himself as he thought this. He would have to find a way to help them somehow. Meanwhile, Naruto was walking out of the Aburame clan home. He heard that he had already been told of what was going to happen by Hinata. Shibi also agreed to let Shino join them and help them. Naruto grinned as he left the home. He had told all of them about the training trip and all of them agreed to train with them. Naruto was happy that they would. He would have a nasty surprise for the people who would fight them. He went home and sat on the couch and was in thought. Kyuubi felt Naruto's thoughts. "What's wrong, kid?" the fox asked. "I feel bad about taking the students away from their sensei," Naruto mentally told the fox. "I don't want them to feel like they haven't been helpful." "How about you allow them to grow stronger as well?" the fox suggested. "How am I supposed to do that?" Naruto thought. "Make them weapons or new jutsu or new fighting styles for them to use," Kyuubi stated, "and if I remember correctly you forgot that Uchiha and the pink-haired girl." "I don't know if I can trust those two," Naruto thought. "Plus I'm still upset about Sasuke being so demanding all my stuff." "Then test them," Kyuubi said. "Test them to see if you can trust them and then offer to take them with you." "Hey, that's not a bad idea," Naruto said aloud this time. As he said that, he began to scheme on how he would test the two and see if he could trust them on this training trip. A few minutes later at the Uchiha complex, Sasuke was just sitting on his couch bored out of his mind. He was about to fall asleep when he heard a knock at the door. He got close to the door and got ready. He sniffed and didn't smell any perfume, nor did he hear any giggles, so it wasn't any fangirls. He had been a bit wary when he woke up to find a few of them in his room going through his underwear drawer one night. He slowly opened the door to find a note taped to the door. He took it off the door and read it. "Dear Sasuke, I need to have a word with you. It's something important and I don't have the time to write the reason to write in this letter. So do me a favor and get your butt in gear, man. Signed, Naruto." Sasuke placed the letter on the coffee table and then ran out the door to go find his friend. He wondered what it was that he needed to talk to him about. Meanwhile, at some apartment complex, Sakura sat in the apartment she was forced to rent after her parents disowned her before they were executed. The landlord here took pity on her since he knew that they were the villains and that she was a victim. He was kind enough to provide her with a place to sleep and stay for a while. She heard a knock at the door and walked toward it nervously. Some of the villagers viewed her as the daughter of a few traitors. A few people glared at her when they saw her. It was only a select few that did though, because others saw how she was at the execution and knew that she wasn't as bad as her parents. She opened the door and saw a note taped to the door. She took it down and read it. "Dear Sakura, I need to have a few words with you. Don't worry, I don't see you as the daughter of a traitor. I just want to have a conversation. The reason behind which I don't have the time to write down, so just come down to my home so we can get this done and over with." Signed, Naruto. "I wonder what he wants to talk to me about," Sakura thought. "Don't worry," Sakuya said in her sister's head. "I'm sure he doesn't have a problem with you. Now get down there and find out what he wants." A few minutes later at the Namikaze complex, both young shinobi approached the gate to the Namikaze complex and were shocked to see each other. "He gave you a letter too?" Sakura asked. "He did," Sasuke answered. "I wonder why he wanted to talk to us." "There's only one way to find out," Sasuke said. The two walked through the gate and saw something that completely shocked them. The door was broken down and there were signs of fighting as well as multiple scorch marks consistent with fire jutsu or lightning jutsu. There were also large gashes in the ground, meaning that Naruto was probably fighting. The two then ran in the door to find something that made their skin crawl. Naruto was currently chained to the wall. He had chakra cuffs on his wrists and was bound tight. He had multiple cuts on his body and a few bruises consistent with multiple strikes with either a bat or a pipe or some other weapon. Out of the hallway walked a few rude Anbu. Behind them was Danzo. "I told you that you wouldn't be able to defeat me, demon," the man said before laughing. "Now I give you this one last chance. Join me or die." Naruto just growled and spat a combination of blood and saliva at the man. The combination hit him in the face. The old war hawk wiped the blood away from his face and shook his head. Danzo made a motion to one of Root. The man then body flickered away, leaving the boy to his fate. The Root rose his sword and was about to bring it down on Naruto's head. The next thing Naruto knew, Sakura and Sasuke were in front of him. The Root looked at the two in shock, then he spoke in an emotionless tone. "Leave now, you two," he said, "this has nothing to do with you." "It has something to do with us," Sasuke said, drawing the sword Naruto gave him at the execution. "I don't care what happens to us. We're not letting you hurt our comrade." "Yeah," Sakura said, agreeing with her crush. "Fine then," the Root said, raising his sword again. "I'll kill you and then him." The Root brought the sword down. Sakura braced herself for impact, but to her surprise, she did feel anything. She looked up and saw the sword inches from her face. Then the Root backed away. Then all the Root around them started to laugh. There were large puffs of smoke and they saw a bunch of Narutos. "What the heck is going on?" Sakura asked, clearly confused. "I'll explain," Naruto said. The two looked to see that he was completely and utterly fine. No wounds, no cuffs or chains, no nothing. "What the hell, Naruto? You scared us half to death. We thought you were in trouble," Sakura yelled. The volume was enough to make the clones disappear while clutching their ears. "It's simple, Sakura," Naruto said, smiling at the two. "You see, I needed to know if I could trust you for something. I decided to come up with this little test to make sure that I could. Sorry about misleading you, but it was the only way I could know for sure." "What is it exactly you needed to trust us for?" Sasuke asked. "Well," Naruto said, "I'm doing a training session here for the next 3 years involving the rest of the Konoha 12. I wanted to make sure I could trust you two to join in on it without having to deal with both you being arrogant and with you being a screeching harpy." The two looked at each other. They were a little mad that they had been tricked like that, but they had to admit that it was a very clever idea. "So what do you guys say?" Naruto asked the two. "Are you in?" "I am," Sasuke said. "I want to make sure that if I find my brother I want to show him how strong I've become." "Yeah," Sakura said, "and I want to show the world that I'm not just some weak harpy anymore." Naruto smiled at the two as they said this. "Good," Naruto said, "we start the training tomorrow afternoon around 2. If you want to be a part of it, show up and be ready. I have to warn you though, this will not be easy. Now if you'll excuse me, I have some work to do." The two nodded. They then went home to start packing for the training session that would be their lives tomorrow. After they left, Naruto headed for the forge. He had some serious work to do before it was time for bed. Later that night, Naruto walked out of the forge and walked slowly and clumsily. He looked at his clock and it was almost midnight. He had been in there for almost 12 hours. He was glad that he had taken in a few soldier pills with him so that he could continue when he got hungry. Naruto slowly made his way to the living room. He was way too tired to climb stairs. He walked slowly to the couch and collapsed on the thing and fell asleep instantly. Hours later, Naruto woke up as he was suddenly hit with bright light. He cursed the large solar object and groaned as he rose up from the couch. He looked at the clock. He gasped when he saw that it was almost noon. He realized then that he had 2 hours before his friends came. He got up quickly and ran to the shower. After a quick shower, he got dressed. Then he formed a few shadow clones and ran into the forge. A few seconds later, he came back out with a few boxes. "Okay," Naruto said to his clones. "I want you to drop these off at the addresses on the boxes." "Got it?" "Yes, sir," the clones said in unison and giving him some mock salutes. "Make sure no one sees you," Naruto said. "If anyone does, the whole thing is ruined." The clones all nodded in understanding. Each one then took the boxes and vanished in flashes of fire. Naruto then heard a knock at the door. He quickly composed himself and answered the door. He smiled as he saw all his friends at the door along with their teachers. He also noticed the parents were there as well, along with Tsunade and Jiraiya. "Glad you guys could come," Naruto said as he let them in. "Are you kidding?" Kiba asked the blonde. "We've been itching to start this training thing ever since we were told about it." "Of course," Naruto said. "Now there was one thing that I forgot to ask before this whole thing," Naruto said. "Do you guys know your elemental affinities?" "Or what now?" Ino asked as she was not familiar with the term. "Oh brother," Naruto said, "a person's chakra is different pertaining to the person. One person can have a fire affinity, giving them the control the fire element to a small extent. It allows them to have strength in certain jutsu, or if they have more than one they can combine them. Like the way that the Shoden was able to form wood by combining his earth and water affinities to make wood." "Whoa," Kiba said, "so you want us to know our elemental affinities so we can utilize that information during our training with you for the next 3 years?" Bingo dog boy, Naruto said, making the dog boy growl at the nickname. Alright then, Naruto said, does anybody here have any chakra paper? Almost all the Junin took a few pieces of the paper Naruto mentioned almost simultaneously. Well, that's helpful, Naruto said. Okay, who wants to go first? How about Team 7? Jiraiya asked. Okay, Naruto said, taking a piece of paper from Kakashi. Now for this to work you need to focus chakra into the paper. Fire makes it burn, water makes it wet, lightning crumples it up, earth turns it to dust, and wind cuts it in half. Sasuke took a piece of paper. He focused his chakra into it. The paper crumpled up and then caught on fire. Afraid he would be burned, he dropped it on the ground. Fire and lightning, Naruto examined, a very interesting combination. Fire you probably got from you old man, while lightning came from your mother. Your turn, Sakura. Sakura took her piece and focused her chakra into it. Almost immediately the paper turned to dust. Earth, Naruto examined. I have to say I'm not really surprised. It explains where you got all that power behind your punches. Sakura blushed slightly and said, what about you, Naruto? Naruto shrugged. He took a piece himself and focused. The result shocked a lot of people. The paper split in 4 pieces. One piece got wet, another turned to dust, another crumpled up, and the last piece caught on fire. I have an affinity with all the elements, Naruto said. It's something I got since my sword had control over certain elements. Okay, my team's turn, Asuma said, handing pieces of chakra paper to Ino, Choji, and Shikamaru. Ino's burst into flame, Choji's turned to dust and caught fire, and Shikamaru's turned black. Fire, earth and darkness, Naruto said, shaking his head. I have to say that I'm not really surprised at this. Thought I have to say training with Choji is going to be very interesting. Our turn, Kurenai said, handing the pieces to her students. Kiba's caught fire and Hinata's became wet. Shino's surprised everyone. It turned to a greenish substance and started to bubble. The boy dropped it in shock. What is that? He asked. Looks like we got a sub-element user, Naruto said, smiling. What? Kurenai asked. Sub-elements, Naruto explained, are either very rare elements that are only seen in bloodline or seen in people with more than one affinity. An example is lava. Since Choji has a fire and earth affinity, he can combine both to perform lava jutsu. Shino here has a very rare affinity, acid. Wow, Shibi said, shocked. Who would have thought it? Moving on, Guy said, taking out a few pieces of chakra paper. He handed them to his students. Neji's turned to dust and so did Lee's. Tenten's did something that no one else expected. It actually hardened and turned to metal. Will there be no end to today's surprises? Naruto asked to no one in particular. This probably explains her thing for weapons. She's got a metal affinity. Man, Dan Higurashi said out loud, there is no end to today's surprises. All right, Naruto said, I suggest you say goodbye to your parents since you won't be seeing them for a few years. The parents said goodbye to their kids and gave them each one long-lasting hug goodbye. Lee and Guy would have done their weird sunset hug thing, but Naruto put a sword to the back of the younger clone's neck to get him to not do it. Before they left, the adults gave their weapons to their children. Well, Hinata had her pointy gloves, so he gave the sword to Neji. This actually shocked them. If you guys are going to train like he has for the past few months, Shibi explained as they left, then we have a feeling you are going to be ready to use those by the time you're done. Besides, you're going to need to use them anyway. The children saw their parents off. At least the ones that had parents did. As the parents left, they looked back at place. Do you really think that they'll be strong enough? Hiyashi asked Sume. Yeah, Sume said, plus you know what we entrusted to his father in that vault, right? Yeah, Dan said, I just hope that they don't get put through heck with that training. I know, Inoichi said, well, we better head home. The parents and teachers left. Tsunade left to go with them and Jiraiya had stayed behind in the complex since he was going to be the one in charge of training them. As the parents left, there was a sudden blast of chakra to the sky. They turned and saw a large dome of chakra form over the complex. They looked at it with their jaws on the floor. Well, Sume said, that's one way to keep out intruders. I wonder if I can get one of those? The clan heads went home while the teachers of the teams felt a little depressed that when they got out that they wouldn't be able to keep up with their students. Each one of them went home. Of course, they never noticed a few Naruto shadow clones turn into smoke a few houses away. Kakashi's house. Kakashi walked in the front door and noticed a box on his couch. He walked over and noticed a small note on top of it. He opened it up and read it. Dear Kakashi, I know that you want to grow stronger along with us. In light of that, I made up a few sword techniques for your sword and a few lightning jutsu to go with it. Hope you enjoy. Signed, Naruto. PS, since it says in your file that you have both a lightning and a fire affinity, why don't you make a move like your Raikiri and Chidori only with fire instead? Kakashi was silent as he read this. Then he walked over to the wall and started bashing his head against the wall. Why hadn't he thought of that before? He continued for a few minutes and then he took some Tylenol for his headache. Guy's house. Guy walked in not in his usual cheerful self. Since his team wasn't going to be around for a while, he wouldn't be able to spread his flames of youth. Wow. Even when you write that, it seems weird. The man walked upstairs to bed. When he stepped in, he noticed a large box. He opened it and his eyes widened at the sight. Inside was a pair of gloves. The thing looked like they had crystals on the knuckles and the fingers were made of metal. On the top of the glove there was a steel in kanji. There was also a pair of boots that looked the same, but no crystals. He found a scroll with a note on it. He opened the note and read it. To Guy, I know that you're probably upset that you won't be able to train your students, so in light of that I have given you these. I couldn't think of a name for them. Anyway, they both are made of strong metal and gloves had crystals in the knuckles. They both make devastating weapons for a taijutsu user like yourself. Also, the weapons can be sealed into a bracelet-like form so you don't have to carry them around all the time. In the scroll is a style called the Great Iron Fist. From what I read in it, it's an extension of your fighting style. Oh, and just so you know, I gave Lee weapons similar to these and he's learning the same style. Good luck, man. You will need it. Signed, Naruto. Guy felt himself tear up as he read the note. He smiled widely as he knew that his flames of youth and Lee's were going to be brighter than ever. Asuma's place. Asuma noticed a package on his doorstep as he approached his home. He picked the box up and walked inside. He set it down on the dinner table and opened it up. As he did, the cigarette in his mouth fell down as his mouth fell open. Inside was the most beautiful set of trench knives. The handle where he put his hands was black while the blade was silver and serrated. The handle also looked like a pair of brass knuckles with the leaf symbol on it. One of the trench knives' blades had the kanji for fire while the other had the kanji for wind on it. He found a note next to the knives and read it. Dear Asuma, I don't want you to wind up lazy like a certain person we know. Cough, Shikamaru cough. Anyway, I made you these. I call them the Death Brothers. I read that you have a fire and wind affinity, so one used fire chakra while the other uses wind chakra. Be sure to know how to focus both before you go trying to use it. I don't think you would want to accidentally burn or cut yourself while training. Enjoy. On a side note, stop smoking already. Not everyone likes the smell, and to be quite honest, you cutting your life in half doing that. The last thing anyone wants, least of all you, is to die an early death. Okay, bye. Signed, Naruto. Asuma picked up his cigarette from the floor and threw it away. He looked his new knives and smiled. This was about to get really interesting. Kurenai's place. Kurenai walked through the door and found a small box on her coffee table. She wondered who it was that sent it to her. She was about to leave it alone when she saw a note written on the box. It read, "Open me now." The woman shrugged and opened the box. Her eye widened at the sight in the box. It was a small violin. It was mostly white with image of a rose carved into the thing. She also noticed a few kanji symbols on the side. She also found a book that was entitled, My First Violin, and another book entitled, How to Write Music. Kurenai then noticed a note in the box. She picked it up and read it. Dear Kurenai, may I introduce you to the White Queen? This violin is similar to mine. Though it's useful, I mostly use mine as a hobby now. Plus I mostly use it now as a weapon if I'm able to sneak up on someone and use it to put them in a scary genjutsu. Since that is your specialty, I figured you would make better use of it for me. The first book will teach you to play beginner's songs. The other book will allow you to make new ones. Also, if you focus chakra into the kanji symbols, you can alter the genjutsu to make it different, or if you want to use a music technique. I have a feeling you are going to need it. Signed, Naruto. Kurenai smiled to herself as she read this. It looked like Naruto wasn't just trying to make the Konoha 12 stronger but their teachers as well. She picked up the violin and its bow. She smiled to herself and sat down and opened My First Violin to page 1. It had been almost 3 years since the Konoha 12 had gone into the Namakzi complex for training. Since then things had been quiet for the village. Well, most of them anyway. Tsunade was constantly questioned by idiots who said that Naruto was corrupting the future of the clans. They were then sent straight to the hospital with a lot of broken bones. Over the last 3 years Danzo had been hiding underground. It was hard to tell where he went or when he would strike. At the time everyone from the teachers to the clan heads were currently at the bar. The reason for the little party was that their children and students would be returning the following day. "Man, I can't believe it's nearly been 3 years already," Anko said as she took a bite out of her dango. "Time flies, I guess," Asuma said. "I agree," Guy spoke up. "I cannot wait to see my youthful charge. I wonder how much more youthful he has gotten over the years." "We'll just have to find out," Anko said as she took a swig of her sake. After the party everyone went home. The next day they woke up with small hangovers. After throwing up a few times, taking a lot of aspirin, and making sure that their breath didn't reek like it had last night, they headed out for the Namikaze compound. The grounds were currently surrounded by a bunch of villagers. Over the past 3 years news of how Naruto killed Orochimaru, thanks to Anko spilling it out at a bar, people had begun to see him in a different light. Slowly, but surely they were getting over their hate from the Kyuubi attack. Sume, Hiyashi, Shibi, Dan, Inoichi, Shikaku stood waiting for their children. Kakashi, Kurenai, Guy and Asuma all stood waiting for their students and to see what kind of strength they would have after training for so many years. Tsunade waited cause she wanted to see her godson. Anko waited so she could see her blonde fox as she started calling him after their date. She also said that if any girls tried to get Naruto for his family name and money that she would torture them so horribly that they would be begging for death by that time. Over the years their looks hadn't really changed. Kakashi basically wore the same outfit, only his Junin vest had a lightning design on it. Kurenai wore a red and white battle kimono with a red rose on the back and had the violin Naruto made her sealed in her arm. Asuma still had his basic look, but he kept the trench knives Naruto made on his belt. Guy looked the same, only he had the bands for his iron gloves on his wrist and the boots underneath his leg warmers. Anko's look had changed to where she wore a slightly more modest outfit. She wore a shirt that still showed off a little cleavage and purple trench coat that had Toxic Mistress and had Emerald Viper and Dark Poison in an X pattern on her back. After a few minutes of waiting, the force field around the Namikaze compound began to lift. After the field was gone, the gates slowly opened. As it opened, it revealed 13 figures. All of them were easily recognizable by the parents. As they looked, they were surprised that their children's looks had changed. Jiraiya was the first one out. He still wore the same clothes as before. The only difference was that his hair was slightly longer. Kiba, now slightly taller, wore a black jacket with the hood down and open to reveal a white shirt. You could tell he had gotten stronger due to some muscle that was under his shirt. He also wore baggy jeans that had a chain linking the belt in the left pocket. He wore a belt that had a buckle designed after a wolf's head. He wore black Anbu sandals on his feet. On his wrists were 2 bands that had the kanji for coyote on them. Sume recognized them immediately as the weapons that Naruto made. On the back of his jacket he had the kanji for werewolf. Akamaru walked at Kiba's side. The small puppy had grown into a large dog that was big enough for Kiba to ride. Shino wore a long white baggy outfit with the hood up and a high collar that covered his mouth. The baggy clothes hid his muscle. The usual sunglasses were there too. One thing that was different was the large chain he had wrapped around his chest. Shibi recognized it as the chain Naruto made for his clan. On the back of his coat he had the kanji for acid beetle. Hinata's look shocked her father. She no longer wore the baggy coat. She wore a long sleeve that was blue on the shoulder and white throughout everything else. This shirt showed off that she was rather well developed. A few men had a few nosebleeds. She also had long Anbu-style pants that showed her curves a little and black sandals. Her hair was no longer short and grew out past her shoulders. She wore a pair of brown gloves. Her shirt had the kanji for Hyuga Water Princess on her back. Ino was the next scene. She was sporting Red Devil on her shoulder. She wore a purple top with no sleeves that showed off her assets slightly, but not too much. She also wore a long purple skirt that ended below her knees and blue sandals. Her long blonde hair was still in a ponytail. She had Fire Princess tattooed on her left forearm. Choji walked out with Raging Earth mounted on his back. The boy now wore samurai-like armor. The armor was red while the shirt he wore was brown. He had lost some of the baby fat he had. The armor, surprising, showed off some muscle he gained over the 3 years of training. In his left shoulder armor he had the kanji for Colossus written in black. Shikimaru walked out next. He wore a gray shirt with his Chunin flag jacket over it. The shadow spear was slung over his shoulder. He had gained a slight bit of muscle as well. He wore short jeans and black sandals. On the sleeve he had the kanji for Abyss. Neji walked out next. He wore an open tan jacket with a white HSIRT underneath and long black Anbu-style pants. He had all-seeing eagle sheathed on a belt that had the Hyuga symbol for a buckle. On the back of his jacket he had the kanji for Hyuga's swordsman. 1010 still had her hair up in 2 buns. She had grown some muscle like everyone else had. She wore a blue Chinese-style shirt and black Anbu pants and blue sandals. On the back of her shirt she had Iron Maiden in kanji. Unlike the others, she didn't carry a weapon. Lee walked out and he wasn't in the usual green jumpsuit, much to Guy's dismay and everyone else's relief. He now wore a green shirt and long blue jeans. His hair was still a bowl cut. Since he didn't have the jumpsuit he didn't need leg warmers to hide the weights on his legs. Guy noticed the bands on Lee's arms and legs and knew that he had the same weapons he did. On the back of his shirt he had Konoha's Iron Fist in kanji. Next was Sasuke. He wore a black short-sleeve shirt and long baggy black jeans and a chain around his waist like a belt. He had Avenger, the sword Naruto gave him during the execution 2 chapters ago, on his back. He had gained muscle like his male friends. He also had Uchiha's burning strength in kanji. Next was Sakura. She had grown a little muscle, but not too much. She wore a red battle kimono with blue shorts under it. She had bandages wrapped around her forearms and white fingerless gloves. On her back was a large black and gold bow that had the kanji for earth, fire, water, lightning and air. Her shirt had the image of a white dragon wrapped around her and had elemental archer tattooed on her arm. Finally Naruto came out. Anko felt her face flush as she saw the little friend. He was now a little taller than Sasuke. His hair was still blonde with red streaks, except he had it tied in a ponytail. His outfit consisted of a black shirt and long black Anbu pants. He also wore a blue trench coat with the sleeves torn off to show off his muscled arms. On the back of his trench coat he had the Namikaze symbol and Konoha's ultimate swordsman written in kanji. Iveiran was embraced by their parents, for those who had them, and teachers. "My youthful charge," Guy yelled as he crushed Lee in a manly hug. "It is good to see you again. How are your flames of youth?" "Bright as ever, Guy-sensei." Lee answered. "Lee," Neji said, "what did we talk about?" "Oh," Lee said in a normal voice, "it is very rude and unyouthful to yell when the person you are talking to is right next to you." Guy gasped as he dropped his student. "You have become more youthful," Guy said with anime tears running down his face. "I applaud you, Naruto, for making my charge more youthful." "You're welcome," Naruto said, smirking. "Hey Mom," Kiba said, "before this goes any further there's something we need to talk to you about." So do the other children of the shinobi clan heads. Sume knew that tone from when Kiba's father used it. Everyone nodded and entered the Namikaze compounds. Everyone was surprised to see much damage was done to the training area. Cracks in the ground, slash marks on the walls, burn marks and some acid burn marks. Everyone walked into the main room and sat down. "So what is it you want to ask?" Sume asked her son. "Why were some of our clan jutsu in the Namikaze vault?" Kiba asked with the large Akamaru sitting down next to him on the floor. "Well," Hiyashi said, "while we were children and Yuru grandparents were clan heads, our houses were broken into. Their target were the clan jutsu of our clan. The powerful ones that could easily kill someone. Luckily they didn't get away with it. We recently found out that the heists were planned by Danzo after going through some papers that he carelessly left behind. That son of a," Kiba started, but was knocked over the head by his mother. "We decided," Hiyashi continued, "with the help of Naruto's grandfather to put our jutsu that only one of the Namikaze could open. That's what led to the Namikaze vault." "Whoa," Naruto said as he heard that. "I take it you found the techniques," Tsunade said. "Not only that," Hinata said, "we learned them." "Oh man," Dan said, "I can't wait to see some of those moves in action." After that, the kids told their parents and respective sensei about the training they had undergone. Apparently Naruto was a slave driver. When Shikamaru, he made him do push-ups with a 20-pound rock on his back. And each time he was lazy, the weight of the rock was increased. Shikamaru wasn't that lazy during the training this time around. After a few minutes there was a knock at the door. Naruto got up and answered it to reveal the Hyuga Council with a smug-looking Hanabi. "The Hyuga Council," Naruto muttered. "To what do I owe this pleasure?" the blonde asked while trying to be civil. He was still upset about them wanting to put the caged bird seal on Nata. Plus he didn't want to marry Hanabi. It was obvious that she only wanted him for his clan name and power. He didn't want to stuck in a loveless marriage. Plus she was way too young for him anyway. "We," said one of the councilmen, "are here to take Hinata with us so that she can be tested against Hanabi to see if she is worthy to become the clan head when she comes of age." Hanabi smirked and looked at Naruto. She looked at him with a playful look that was obviously more than innocent. Naruto just leveled a glare at her, making her look at the ground and squirm. "Why don't we do it here?" Naruto asked. "I mean, everyone is here. It would be a waste of time to just walk back to the Hyuga complex." "Good point," said one councilman trying to hide his smirk. He and the rest of the council knew that Hinata would lose to Hanabi and they could finally put the caged bird seal on the weak little Hyuga. The Hyuga Council and everyone else made their way to the sparring ring. The Hyuga Council didn't see the training area that they had been in, so they didn't know how vigorous the training session had been for the past 3 years. The two Hyuga entered the ring. Hanabi grinned at her sister. "Don't worry, sister," Hanabi said as she activated her Byakugan. "I'll take good care of Naruto-kun." Hanabi lost her grin as she felt a little killing intent aimed at her. She was surprised to see a bit of anger in her big sister's eyes. "Hanabi," Hinata said, "shut up. I think it's time for a long overdue spanking." Hanabi steeled her nerves and got into a gentle fist stance. Hinata got into her stance too, only her hands were put out on front of her a little bit. "She can't even do the gentle fist stance right," one council member laughed. However, one member, Hiashi's father, had a glimmer of recognition in his eyes. He had seen that fighting stance before, but that was a long time ago. In the ring, Hanabi ran at her sister. Hinata just dodged to the side. Hinata then threw out a Jiyuken strike that Hanabi managed to dodge. Hanabi was surprised that the sister that had never struck out at her before was doing it now. As she was thinking this, she realized another strike was heading for her again. She jumped back. Hinata grinned as she suddenly front flipped over Hanabi and then nailed her in the back of her shoulder with a Juken strike. Hanabi cried out as she stumbled forward and clutched her shoulder. Hanabi turned and glared at her sister. She tried to get back in the stance, but then she realized something that shocked her. "I can't move my arm," she said. "What?" a councilman yelled. "How?" "The Jiyuken style closes Tenkutsu. It shouldn't be able to do that." "How did you do that?" Hanabi asked. "My little secret," Hinata answered, making Hanabi scowl. Her scowl turned to shock when Hinata vanished and appeared in front of her. "Divination. 64 palms." Hinata said, 2 palm, 4 palms, 8 palms, 16 palms, 32 palms, 64 palms. Each strike hit its mark and Hanabi fell to the ground in pain. The Hyuga Council gaped in shock that the Hyuga failure had just beaten her little sister. They were staring in shock at her. "How did she manage to beat Hanabi?" asked a Hyuga Council member. "Simple," Hinata said. "I used my mother's version of the Jiyuken style." "I thought I recognized that stance," Hiashi's father said. "You used a perverted version of our style." "No," Hinata said. "The style are the same, but mine is better." "You lie," said another council member. "She doesn't," Hiashi said. "The fact that she beat Hanabi is a clear sign that our own is quite flawed. I thought you would have realized this when Naruto beat our so-called prodigy during the Chunin exam 3 years ago." "But how did she manage to take away the use of Hanabi's arm?" asked a council member. "I have water-based chakra instead of earth-based," Hinata explained. "Because of that I can expand the reach of my strikes. Thanks to this, if I strike a joint I can paralyze it through the Tenkutsu." "I knew we shouldn't have let this happen," growled a council member. "Winner or not, you will still be branded with the caged bird seal." "She won," Hiashi yelled. "She didn't use the regular Jiyuken style." The council member growled back, "It doesn't count. Neji, subdue her so we can brand her." No, Neji replied, drawing his sword. Now, the council member commanded. Neji just stood defiant. All right then, the councilman said as he formed a half-ram seal. Silence. Nothing happened. The councilman tried again, as did the others. The caged bird seal isn't activating, the councilman whispered. Neji removed his headband. The Hyuga council member's eyes widened in shock and a little bit of fear. The seal was gone. How? Hiashi's father asked, being answered by Naruto's laughter. Being a seal master in training has its advantages, Naruto said. The Hyuga council was sweating at this point. They then tried to make a break for the door, but they were cut off by Akamaru jumping in front of it and roaring angrily. There is also something I would like to know, Tsunade said. I had a look at Hana's body with the consent of Hiashi. Imagine my surprise when I find leftover traces of poison in her body. Care to explain? The council was sweating bullets at this point. At that, everyone could tell that they had something to do with it. Anbu, take these traitors to the interrogation and tell Ibiki that Anko is on her way for a session. Tsunade said as a bunch of Anbu appeared out of nowhere. The Hyuga council was then put in chakra cuffs and then taken off to the interrogation department. Anko walked over to Naruto and gave him a small peck on the lips. See you later, cutie pie, she said as she sauntered off, swaying her hips. Hinata and Ten both glared holes in the back of the snake mistress's head. This didn't go unnoticed by their parents. I thought he would be with my daughter, Inoichi said. I would be, Naruto said, but Shikamaru beat me to the punch. Shikaku's and Inoichi's jaws both dropped as they stared at their children. Shikamaru walked over to Ino and put his arm around her waist and pulled her close, making her blush. What about Sakura? Tsunade asked. Sakura waked up to Sasuke and took his arm, leaned against it, making the Uchiha blush slightly. Okay, when did this happen? Kakashi asked. Well, Naruto said, Shikamaru and Ino were sparring about a month after we got in. While sparring, both of them slipped on some banana peels Choji left around, sent a look at said boy who grinned sheepishly. They wound up kissing and wouldn't go near each other for a while. In the end, we locked the two in a closet. About an hour later, we opened it to find the two making out. That explains a bit, Tsunade said, but what about Sakura and Sasuke here? Sakura grew on me during training, Sasuke said. After a while we got to talking and I wound up asking her out. You'd be surprised that you can actually go out with someone in this place. You can? Tsunade asked. Yep, Sakura said. Choji made us dinner and Naruto played his violin in the background. It was really romantic. Plus, despite his nature, Shikamaru made a pretty good waiter. Everyone stared at Shikamaru, who squirmed a little under everyone's gaze. This is just too insane, Kakashi said. So how did you and Hinata finally get together? Hiashi asked. Well, Hinata said, sitting next to her father, I finally got the guts to admit my feelings for him. Everyone snickered a bit when they remembered what had happened. What's so funny? Sume asked. When Hinata told him, Kiba said, laughing. Naruto told her the same and gave her a little kiss. After that she let out of the biggest fangirl squeals I've ever heard. The boy then stuck his finger in his ear and cleaned out his ear. I can still feel my ears ringing, and Akamaru had to bury his head in the ground when it happened. Everyone blinked before they started laughing a bit. You said you wouldn't tell anybody about that, Hinata muttered, looking a little embarrassed. We couldn't help it, Ten said, it was freaking funny. So now that we're out, Naruto said, why don't we head to Ichiruka's? I'm in the mood for some real ramen for once. Yeah, Ino said, we had some of the instant stuff and we want to compare. Yeah, Choji yelled, ramen. With a shrug everybody got up and decided to go to Ichiruka's ramen stand. They decided it would be a way to celebrate the return of their children from their training trip. The group of genin made their way to the stand. As soon as they entered they were greeted with the sight of an old man and pretty young woman. Hey there, old man, Naruto said, sitting down. Naruto, the old man Tucci said, where's my #1 customer been for the past few years? I've been training with my friends here, Naruto answered as the people mentioned sat down. Hey there, Ayame said, smiling. Choji was currently staring at Ayame. The girl noticed this and decided to have a little bit of fun with it. She winked at him, making the Akamichi blush. Everyone ordered a different type of ramen that suited their tastes. So Naruto, Tsunade asked as they waited for their meals, how have you come along with your swords? I've mastered all of the swords of light and dark, Naruto answered, making the others gasp. All of them? Anko asked. How did you manage to do that in 3 years' time? It took me a year with both sets, Naruto explained. Apparently my determination and other things involving my friends gave me access to their power. Unlike the third set, they need positive feelings or, in the case of the Swords of Dark, a deep fury. How did you manage the last part? Sume asked as their food arrived. I found out about what happened to my family in Whirlpool, Naruto answered. My clan was slaughtered by some guy with weird eyes. Anyway, since I mastered the Swords of Light, I trained only with the dark swords. My righteous fury, as the fox calls it, gave me the ability to master them. Naruto, Tsunade said, shouldn't you not mention the we know about the fox, Sasuke said, taking a bit of ramen. He wasn't a big fan of the stuff, but it was decent food, he would admit. You told them? Sume asked. Some of them already knew, Naruto said, causing the parents to stare at their children. Mom told me before she went missing, Tenten said. I figured it out, Shikamaru said. Uncle told me, Choji said. Grandma obviously, Kiba said. My mom obviously, Sakura said. The rest of us didn't know, so you can guess we were feeling pretty upset about that, Sasuke said, looking a little bit upset. After that everyone ate in relative silence except for the parents and sensei asking their respective students and children about what they trained in and how powerful they had become. The answer was that they would just have to wait and find out. They finished eating and paid. Well, they all ditched Jiraiya and left the bill for him to pick up. They all figured since he sold those Icha books that they would have plenty of money to spare, but he was just too much of a tightwad to do so. After that everyone went home. Naruto was walking through the courtyard of his home. He then felt something was off. He noticed the door was unlocked, and he knew that he locked the door when he left. He walked through the house. When he entered he found a note on the coffee table. It read, "Come upstairs. I have a surprise for you." Naruto raised an eyebrow at the letter. He made his way upstairs. When he entered he saw a sight that almost made him faint. In his room on his bed sat Anko in a purple swimsuit that looked like it was made from snakeskin. "Hey there," she said in a husky tone. "I never did properly thank you for killing my old sensei. Plus you can consider this a welcome back from training present." The purple-haired vixen then walked up to him and pulled him into a deep-tongue probing kiss that felt like he was getting a deep gum cleaning. She then pulled him into the room with her and shut the door behind them, and there was the sound of a lock being clicked shut. Meanwhile, in a cave in AIM-8 astral projections stood. "So are we ready to begin the plan?" asked a figure with multiple colored eyes. "It seems that we are," said one figure with a Venus flytrap on his head. He also spoke in two voices. "Finally," said a figure with a large scythe on his back, "Lord Jashin has been wondering when his next sacrifices will come." Sasori, the man with multiple eye colors, called Deidara. One figure that had hair covering one eye and another who seemed to be a hunchback approached. "Yes, Pain-sama?" The one with hair over his eye said. "Go and retrieve the Ichibi," the now identified Pain ordered. "It is time to set our plan in motion." Late night in Suna. There was a strange sight going on this night in Suna. Two figures floated in the sky staring at each other. The first of which was a red-headed 16-year-old with brown and black clothes and a white scarf wrapped around his waist. Above his right eye was the kanji for love in red. This was Gaara no Subaku, the case cage of Suna. Gaara's blue eyes narrowed intensely as he stared at the man he was fighting. The man in question was male. He had long blonde hair that flowed past his shoulders and covered one of his eyes. If you removed the hair you'd see a fake one in its place. The man wore a long black robe with red clouds decorating it. His hands had mouths on them. It was unknown what those were for at the moment. What stuck out about him was the fact that the man was standing on a giant bird that was made out of clay. On his head he wore an Iwa headband that had a long gash across the plate on the front. This was Deidara, the mad bomber. "What do you want with me?" Gaara asked as Deidara. "You have something that our boss wants," the mad bomber said, "you and 8 others like you." "You want the Shukakao," Gaara said, "you can take it from me. When you rip it from my cold lifeless corpse." "Oh," Deidara said, "now you're making it fun." The man held up his hand revealing the mouths on his palm. The mouth opened and clay came out. The clay shifted and formed a small bird. The bird flew at Gaara. The redhead didn't see any immediate danger, but the sand on the desert floor flew up and formed a shield around him. Good thing too. A few seconds later the bird exploded. Deidara smirked as he saw the explosion. His smirk fell when he saw that the shield around Gaara held. The blonde Akatsuki member smiled as he saw something on the shield. "Got you," he said. Gaara then realized that there was a clay spider on his shield. Before he could consider this, the whole thing exploded in a huge blast of smoke and chakra. Down below, Gaara, a figure, yelled. This one was male. He wore a black bodysuit that covered his head with a hood that gave him the appearance of a cat. He had war paint all over his face and a large bandaged pack on his back. This was Kankuro, Gaara's older brother. "You will not interfere," came a new voice. Kankuro turned to see a hunchbacked figure wearing a black robe with red clouds on it. He couldn't see his face due to the fact that it was shadowed by a straw hat that the figure wore. "I don't know who you are," Kankuro growled, taking the package of his back, "but I won't let you hurt my little brother." The package unwrapped itself to reveal a large monstrous-looking puppet. "Oh," the figure said, "a fellow puppeteer." The man then held out his arms. As he did, multiple strings shot out of his sleeves. Then about 50 or so puppets came out of the ground. "No way," Kankuro gasped. "You're Sasori of the Red Sand." The figure finished for Kankuro, lifting up his head, revealing a Suna headband with a large gash running across it. The puppets then charged at Kankuro. The boy tried to fight them off, but was struck from behind with a poisoned blade. The boy fell down in complete agony. The pain he was in just seemed to get worse and worse. "Deidara-senpai," yelled Sasori, "we need to go. This place is going to be swarming with ninjas soon." "You're right," Deidara said, flying down on his bird, "let's go. We need to get him to the ceiling area." With that, the puppeteer's puppets vanished and he jumped onto the massive clay bird. Then they took off into the moonlit night. A few seconds after their entrance, Tamari, along with a few other ninja including Anbu, came out. They looked around and saw the signs of the fight that had taken place here a few minutes ago. Tamari growled as she saw that her little brother was gone. She then heard groaning from nearby. She spun and saw Kankuro on the ground in obvious agony. "Kankuro!" she yelled as she ran over to him. "Tamari," Kankuro growled through his pain, "they came for him. Just like the old man warned us, the Akatsuki." "Quick," Tamari ordered, "someone get some medic nin down here. And someone send a message to Konoha. We need all the help we can get." "Yes ma'am," said the Anbu. They knew better than to ignore an order from Gaara's eldest sibling. Tamari then looked to the sky and though, "Kami, help us." Back in Konoha, Naruto was brought out of his blissful sleep when he heard a loud knocking coming from his front door. He tried to remember what happened. He then looked to his side to see Anko snuggling him. Her hand was on his chest and her head was snuggled into his shoulder. He smiled and blushed slightly as he remembered what happened. He then remembered the knocking that was going on at his door. He managed to get of Anko's grip, making the sleeping Jonin whimper from the lack of warmth. The blonde then made a shadow clone that got back in bed and started snuggling with her again. The woman sighed in her sleep and then started to cuddle with the clone. As the moon shone through the window, Naruto's back was illuminated. There you could see multiple symbols arranged in 3 circles on his back. The innermost were in white. They were the kanji for phoenix, leopard, dragon, butterfly, wolf, lion, and dove. The second layer was in black. They were the kanji for burning fox, hellhound, arctic fox, bear, hawk, boar, and cheetah. The final layer was written in red. This one had the kanji for raccoon dog, demon cat, giant turtle, lava monkey, dolphin horse, acidic slug, armored beetle, great ox, and monster fox. Naruto got up, grabbed some pants, his shirt, and his boots before going downstairs and opening the door. He was greeted by an Anbu wearing a blue wolf mask. "Do you know what time it is?" Naruto asked the Anbu at his door. "Namikaze-sama," the Anbu said, "your presence is needed. It is an urgent matter." "What is it, and can't it wait till sunrise?" Naruto asked, trying to get the sleep out of his eyes. "The cage has been kidnapped," the Anbu yelled. Naruto's eyes shot open. He ran back, grabbed a weapons pouch and his trench coat and made like heck for the Hokage Tower. Tsunade and Team 7 had been waiting. "What's going on, Ba-chan?" Naruto asked as he entered. "What happened to Gaara?" "Something terrible," Tsunade said. "About a half an hour ago Gaara was kidnapped by 2 men. Both of them wore a black robe with red clouds on them." "So the Akatsuki has finally made their move," Naruto said with a low growl. "Do you have a description of either of them?" Yes, Tsunade said. One was a tall blonde man and the other was a hunchback that seemed to use puppets. Sasori and Deidara, Naruto said, making everyone look at him. How do you know those names, Naruto? Kakashi asked. Ero Sennin gave me a scroll that contains the profiles of the Akatsuki members before we were locked in my compound for training, Naruto explained. Everyone in there studied it in case we ever run into them. Looks like it's going to come in handy. Yes, Tsunade said, smiling. Now you are to head to Suna to rescue the case cage and if at all possible kill the Akatsuki members. Remember, rescue Gaara and then kill those poor bastards. Yes ma'am, everyone said at the same time. After that, Naruto, Sasuke, Sakura, and Kakashi ran out of the office. Then Naruto summoned 4 large hawks and they all jumped on and flew towards Suna at incredible speed. As they flew, Kakashi noticed something. Naruto, where are the scrolls? Kakashi asked. Naruto doesn't keep them in the scrolls anymore, Sasuke said. Naruto removed them from the scrolls and sealed them into his bag. It makes them easier to get to and he doesn't have to worry about losing them on a mission. Smart, Kakashi said as they flew. As the sun rose over the deserts of Wind Country, the Team 7 arrived at the Suna. The hawks landed and the team got off. The hawks then vanished in puffs of smoke. Naruto noticed that the village was surrounded by an enormous wall of sand. As they approached the village, they were stopped by the guards. State your business, the guards said in creepy unison. We're sent from Konoha, Kakashi said. We heard about what happened to the case cage. Go inside then, the guard on the left said, moving, and be quick, we don't know how much time the case cage has. The team nodded as the sand that formed the gate around the village opened. They walked in the village to find the people there waiting for them. Naruto. Temari yelled as she ran up and hugged the blonde boy. Temari, Naruto said, we know what happened. Where's Kankuro? He's in the hospital, Temari said. He was injected with some poison that caused him incredible pain. Luckily we had a major medical specialist in the village at the time. Who would that be? Naruto asked with a raised eyebrow. That would be me, said a voice that no one knew. Everyone turned to see a wrinkled old woman with gray hair. Who are you? Naruto asked. My name is Chio, the old woman said. I was the one who came up with the antidote for the poison in Kankuro here. So do you know where they went? Naruto asked. Sadly no, Temari said. We can't find any trace. We only found what's left of Gaara's gourd. Naruto thought for a minute. Then he snapped his fingers in an idea. Naruto focused chakra into his back. He reached for his back and there was a small puff of smoke. When it cleared, he pulled out a sword. It was a light blue blade with stripes that looked like scratch marks from a wolf. At the bottom of the blade was the image of a wolf's head. Above that it had the kanji for Hunter's Touch. Is that one of the swords of light? Chio asked. Yes, Naruto said. Why do you ask? My grandmother witnessed the fight between the warriors who wielded these swords, Chio said. How did you manage to get them? I inherited them, Naruto said. Chio was quiet as she stared at the boy. Naruto then bit his thumb, drawing a bit of blood. Then he threw the sword in the air. He went through hand signs, then he caught the sword before he stabbed the sword in the ground, yelling, summoning jutsu. Carcass trackers. There was a huge puff of smoke. Everyone shielded their eyes from the smoke. As it cleared, it showed 4 large wolves. Each one was black and looked very strong. The obvious leader was the largest of the 4. He had on an iron mask that let his ears and eyes show, as well as a few metal-tipped teeth. He also had few scars from many fight. For what purpose have you called upon the carcass trackers, my lord? The wolf asked, bowing. Everyone was staring at that. Even Sakura and Sasuke. They knew it came with contracts, but they didn't know that contracts could talk. Naruto had never summoned them. At least not while they were around. I need you to get the scent of Gaara Tsubaku, Naruto ordered. We need to find him. He may be in mortal danger. The wolves nodded before they went to work sniffing the gourd. After a few minutes, the head wolf picked up the scent. My lord, the lead wolf said, I have picked up the scent of blood and sand. We have found the trail. I hope so, Naruto said. The last thing we need right now is to have the case cage die. I don't think people are going to take too kindly to that. Let's go, guys. Hold on, Chio said. I'm going with you. Look, Granny, Naruto said. I appreciate your intentions, but we're going against S-ranked criminals here. None of us want you to get hurt. The old woman gave Naruto a sly smirk. Then she walked up to a building and, drawing back her fist, punched it. A huge spider web of cracks and weaknesses appeared as he made contact. Naruto's eyes went wide as he saw Tsunade standing in the old woman's place for a few seconds. I may be old, Chio said, but I still have some kick in these old bones. Plus I have the antidote for that poison. It may come in handy for when you fight these guys. Okay Chio Oba-chan, Naruto said, you can come with. Gnarl letty woman ride you. She's going to need all the strength she can get if she's going to help us. I appreciate your concern, the old woman said, slightly annoyed that Naruto kept calling her old and was treating her like she was a weak old lady when in fact she was not weak. Old yes, but not weak. She climbed on Gnarl, the head wolf, and they were all about to head out of the village. Naruto, Tamari said, getting the blonde's attention. She walked up and kissed him on the lips before saying, I'll be sure to reward you if you bring back my little brother in one piece. She winked slyly as Naruto blushed. Come on Romeo, Sasuke said, we need to get going. Naruto shook his head out of his daze and ran to join his team and Chio. Meanwhile, in a large cave near the border of Wind Country was a large cave. Hard to believe there'd be one in the desert, but still. Anyway, inside the cave stood a huge statue. It was a large behemoth of a man-like creature that had 9 eyes. 2 were on its face, but the other 6 were on its arms. 3 of these eyes were opened. On the arms of the statue stood 2 holographic images. One was of a large man with red hair and a pair of multicolored eyes, and a man who looked like he had a Venus flytrap around his head, only he had only half of it and his entire face was black. Both of them wore black robes with red clouds decorating them. In the mid-air floated Gaara. His body was completely limp. His eyes were open wide and glowing brown. A brown-colored chakra was flowing from the boy to one of the eyes on the statue. As the chakra came to said eye, it was slowly creeping open. How long will this take, Pain-sama? Deidara asked his master. I want to get out of here as soon as possible. What is wrong, Zetsu? Having trouble with the weather here? Asked the holographic plant man. Quiet Zetsu, Deidara growled. Now, Pain said. No need to get impatient, Deidara. You know how you get when you're angry. Plus you know how I deal with insubordination. Suddenly the ground behind them shifted and another person in Akatsuki robes rose out of the ground. It was a man that looked like Zetsu, only white, and he had the other half of the Venus flytrap. Pain-sama, the other Zetsu said, there are a few Konoha nin and someone from Sand approaching at a fast pace. What is the significance of that? Pain asked as he went back to the ceiling. The Kyuubi Jinchuriki is with them, White Zetsu said, plus a certain someone that Sasori knows. The hunchback turned and looked at the plant man. So she really has come, Sasori said with a hint of surprise in his voice. This isn't going to be a problem, is it? Pain asked with a tone that meant that the answer better be what he wanted it to be. No master, Sasori said, it won't. Good, Pain said, now go. We only need a little bit longer to complete the ceiling. Yes, Pain-sama, Sasori and Deidara said. With that they turned and headed out of the cave to confront their opponents. Zetsu, Pain said looking at the one below them, I want you to watch the battle. I want to see how much the Kyuubi Jinchuriki's strength has grown. Yes, Pain-sama, the plant man said as he sunk into the ground. Outside of the cave, Gnarl and his pack had led the group to the cave. As soon as they arrived they were greeted by the sight of Sasori and Deidara waiting for them. So these are the Konoha nin that they sent to rescue the case cage, Deidara said, what a waste. They should have sent some more of you, so you could at least give us a challenge. Just because we're teens, Naruto growled, doesn't mean we're weak, you transgender freak. What did you call me? Deidara asked, his eyes narrowing in anger. Even the fake one behind his hair. The hunchback looked at Chio, who had gotten off Gnarl's back. It has been a great deal of years since I last saw you, Chio said to Sasori. You look like you haven't aged a day. You know him? Sasuke asked as he looked at the old woman. She does, Sasori said stepping forward. Hello, grandmother. Grandmother? Kakashi asked. Yes, Chio said, I'm his grandmother. I'm also the woman who raised him after his parents died and taught him the arts of puppetry and poisons. So that's how he knew that stuff, Naruto said. Wait, you raised him? What happened to his parents? Ask him, Chio said pointing to Kakashi. His father is the one who killed them, sensei. Sakura asked. It was a mission my father was on, Kakashi said. If he had known what would become of the orphaned son he probably never would have done it. Speaking of which, Sasori said, where's your old man? I'd like to kill him. Too late, Kakashi said, drawing thunder rage. He's been dead for quite a few years now. Oh, Sasori said sadly. Well, it looks like I'm just going to have to settle for killing his son. Sasori held out his hands and then about 50 puppets shot out of the ground. Each one brandished a weapon that was dripping with poison. Gnarl, Naruto said, go. This is our fight. Yes, my lord, the wolf said before it vanished in a puff of smoke. Naruto then focused into his back and brought out Heaven's Phoenix. He brought up Hunter's Touch and crossed them in an X shape and spread his legs in a combat stance. Sasuke drew Avenger and Sakura took out her bow and held it like a club. Enough talk, Naruto said with his eyes flashing red. Let's play. Chio got into a stance herself and joined the Konoha ninja. Naruto, his team and Chio all charged at the Akatsuki members. Sasori's puppets shot out from his charging, as did Deidara. Just as the three were about to clash, everything froze and became really weird like a watercolor painting. Naruto jumped to the left to avoid getting poisoned knife to the chest from one puppet. He then had to throw out a quick kick to stop another one from stabbing him in the back. He spun around and aimed for the puppet's legs. Shin, the puppet was knocked into the air. Naruto jumped after him and aimed a leg at the puppet's thigh. Veal shoot. The puppet was sent flying away and crashed into a rock hidden in the sand dunes. Sakura jumped up to avoid getting hit with a poisonous dart shot from a puppet's mouth. She then charged at it, ducking more darts before she threw out a punch that obliterated the puppet's torso. Whoa, Kakashi said as he used Storm Rage to cut down a puppet. When did Sakura get so strong? I was given a medical scroll by the old pervert. Sasuke explained as he threw a kunai embedding it between the eyes of one puppet. She has incredible strength that might be on par with Tsunade, but we aren't sure yet. Kakashi was taken out of the conversation when a puppet wielding a poison axe nearly cut him in half. He charged Storm Rage with electric chakra and swung it, destroying the puppet. Don't think you're out of this yet, Deidara said as he shot a clay bird at Sasuke. Sasuke jumped away just in time for the bird to explode. He then went through hand signs. Fire style. Hell's furnace, he shouted in his mind. A huge jet of flame shot out of his mouth. A few puppets were burned and Deidara managed to jump out of the way. The sand on the ground was turned to glass, and when the flames hit a rock it exploded. Deidara growled angrily. He then glared at the Uchiha. As he did, he noticed something that was strange. You don't have your Sharingan active, he said, surprised. I don't follow the ways of my old clan, Sasuke said. I fight using my own strength. Well then, Deidara said, forming a katana out of clay. Let's see how strong you are. The two then charged at each other and locked swords. Kakashi saw this and became worried. He looked at Naruto and made a few indiscreet signs despite the battle that was waging around them. Naruto nodded as he saw them. Then he jumped up on top of a puppet's head. Party table kick course. The blonde athletically moved on the puppet's head and grasped it despite the swords in his hands. He then proceeded to bust up a few puppets that were nearby. Each one had either its chest busted open or had its head crushed. The blonde then jumped off and then kicked the puppet he was balancing on. Naruto made hand signs at Sakura, who nodded. She then charged at the remaining of Sasori's puppets with Chio, both of them using their incredible strength to destroy them. Meanwhile, Sasuke and Deidara were locking swords. Surprisingly, the clay used in Deidara's sword was very durable and matched Sasuke's steel. You're good, Deidara said, but it won't be enough to beat me. To you maybe, Sasuke said. But you made one tragic mistake when it came to fighting me. Deidara leaning in and growled, What? You're looking me in the eyes. Sasuke said. The Uchiha then opened his eyes to reveal a fully matured Sharingan. Deidara would have moved, but he was then placed in a genjutsu that kept him from moving. Genjutsu art. Night of the Clan Massacre. Deidara froze, then he fell prey to genjutsu. He saw his old home in Iwa. He saw his family all slaughtered like pigs. He heard footsteps and turned around. He saw his father dragging his mother, still alive, but severely beaten body. He then took out a kunai and drove it into his wife's skull as she screamed out. He screamed as the trauma set in. He fell to his knees weeping. Real world Naruto rushed up, taught him, followed by Kakashi. Now, Kakashi said, while he's down. Two sword style. Hawk wave. Naruto called out, sending a huge wave of wind knocking Deidara back and out of the genjutsu. My turn, Sasuke yelled as he ran up going through hand signs. Fire style. Dragon blaze. The Uchiha sent out a huge blast of flames that swallowed the mad bomber. Now to end it, Kakashi growled going through hand signs, lightning style. Arc lightning. Lightning chakra focused in Kakashi's hands as he sent out a huge arc of lightning toward the flames. There was a huge explosion and sand was sent flying all over the place. One down, Naruto said, one to go. The three then went over to the fight with Sakura, Chio and Sasori. Sakura had taken the bow off her back and was using it as a club. Though it looked flimsy, it made a very effective club. Each puppet was crushed with the combined factors of her strength and the density of the metal. Chio was crushing puppets left and right. You haven't slowed down over the years, Grandma, Sasori said as he manipulated his puppets. What do you expect? Chio said, I always was lively for someone my age. A few more puppets came up behind the two and they soon fell. However, two more puppets burst from the sand in a sneak attack. Sakura and Chio both yelled out as poison blades struck their backs. Sasori smirked to himself as he saw this. He felt a little pang of regret as he saw his grandmother fall, but he shook it off. Then the last thing he expected happened. Chio spun on her heel and destroyed the puppet with an incredibly strong punch. How? Sasori asked, completely dumbfounded. I created an antidote for the poison you used on that boy in Suna, Chio said with a grin. Did you really think that we would be stupid enough to not take it before we came? As she said this, Sakura aimed her bow and focused chakra into the kanji for fire. Flaming arrows. As she called out her attack, flames gathered on the bow, formed flaming arrows and fired off. Each arrow ignited the remaining puppets. Sakura then rushed forward, putting her bow back on her back with Chio by her side. Sasori tried to turn and run but was cut off by Naruto, Sasuke and Kakashi. Naruto got to him fires before front flipping and landing on his hands with one leg aimed at the hunchback's chin. Mixed vegetables shot. Naruto then used his arms to launch himself upwards, sending the puppeteer flying skywards. Naruto flipped and landed on his feet. He then threw out a leg. Sasuke jumped on it balanced. Naruto turned around before aiming at the airborne form of Sasori. Naruto then threw out a kick that sent Sasuke soaring at the flying puppeteer. Sasuke flew towards the puppeteer at an incredible speed. Once he was behind the hunchback, he grabbed him by the shoulders. Lion's barrage. Sasuke sent out a few punches and then sent Sasori flying down towards the earth. Ba-chan, Sakura, you're up, Naruto yelled, creating a clone. The two got the message and jumped on a leg themselves. They were thrown at the falling puppeteer at a slightly faster speed than Sasuke. The two kunoichi grabbed onto an arm and each brought down a powerful punch that sent the puppeteer flying down into the ground with a resounding boom. The three skyward ninja landed roughly on the sand, but it was nothing too serious. Wow, Kakashi said, I've never seen such teamwork. While we were training, Sakura said, we all came up with team strategies and moves that we could use. Good thing too, otherwise that never would have worked. Well, Naruto said, I'm going to go kill that freak if he hasn't broken his neck. With that, Naruto left to get Sasori's body from the sandy crater that he now rested in. You know what I don't get? Kakashi asked. What, sensei? Sakura asked. How has this guy managed to stay like this? He's probably older than me right now, Kakashi said. I have wondered that myself, Chio voicing her thoughts. Naruto walked up to the crater that Sasori rested in. He looked down at the broken body. The broken, cracked, empty body. Guys, Naruto yelled, turning back to his friends, it's a puppet. We've been duped. Very good, came Sasori's voice. Naruto jumped away just in time to avoid a bunch of poison blades that came out of the ground. The blonde back flipped away and landed in front of his friends, brandishing his swords, which had managed to stay in his hands the whole time of the fight. Out of the sand rose a few more puppets, followed by a new face. It was a tall, red-haired man with spiky red hair and a piercing. Sasori, Chio said, I was starting to wonder how you changed so much. Yes, grandmother, Sasori said. I have to say I'm impressed that you managed to destroy my shell. I have to admit that one was my favorite. Too bad, buddy, Naruto said, crossing his swords. He rushed forward and swung both, yelling, two-sword technique. Hawk wave. The blast of wind was about to connect when the ground in front of Sasori exploded. Out of the newly formed hole jumped a bruised and bleeding Deidara. What the hell? Naruto yelled. I thought you were blown up. I switched myself with a clay replica before the fire blast hit, Deidara said. Good thing too. I'd be dead if it wasn't for that. I'm getting sick of this, Naruto growled. Too bad, Deidara said before launching a clay bird at Naruto. The blonde just stood there. As the bird closed in on him he whispered, Ashura. There was a sudden blast of energy and the clay bird was knocked back and exploded. Chio and the rest of Team 7 covered their eyes as a huge blast of energy hit them. A dark aura formed around Naruto making Sasori and Deidara gasp. Behind Naruto stood a strange figure with 6 arms. Then as if on cue another blast of chakra and 6 foxtails came out of his tailbone. The blonde opened his eyes showing a pair of red eyes with slit pupils. Kakashi Sasuke, Naruto said, you guys take on Clayboy over there. Me Ba-chan and Sakura will take on Dollboy. Both Akatsuki bristled slightly, though Sasori didn't show it, at the little names given to them. Deidara jumped away followed closely by Sasuke and Kakashi. Sakura took off her gloves and Chio just mentally prepared herself. Naruto went through hand signs. There was flash of chakra and a third sword appeared in Naruto's teeth. It was a slime green color with the image of 6 tails as the bottom of the blade. All right little boy, Naruto growled out, let's play. With those words Sasori summoned 100 puppets and they small army and the 3 ninja charged at each other. Round 1. Deidara vs Kakashi and Sasuke. Deidara landed on a sand dune and shot out a few clay crabs from his hand. Sasuke and Kakashi jumped to the side just missing the clay birds and the explosions. Kakashi, Sasuke said, when this is over I may never look at fireworks the same way again. Kakashi nodded in his direction before going through a bunch of hand signs. Lightning style. Hunting storm. Kakashi generated a few bolts of lightning and they turned into large wolves. They then charged at the mad bomber. Deidara smirked before forming some clay wolves and sending them to do battle with the lightning wolves. The 2 packs charged at each other and clashed in a flurry of sparks and dirt. The packs then exploded sending sand everywhere. The 3 competitors were temporarily blinded by the sudden burst of smoke and sand. Deidara charged through the smoke forming clay swords in each hand. He charged out of the dust and at Sasuke. The young Uchiha saw this coming and jumped out of the way to avoid getting cut. You really need to learn to hold still, Deidara said with an annoyed look on his face. But the point of me dodging is for me to live, Sasuke said. If you can't appreciate life you can't appreciate art. Deidara glared at the Uchiha and doubled his efforts to slice him. Sasuke leapt back and took out his sword before the 2 met with a loud clang. The 2 glared at each other in a standoff. You can't beat me without those eyes boy, Deidara growled. I'm not like the other members of my clan, Sasuke growled. They grew weak because they relied on their eyes. I don't, and that's what makes me strong. There was a sudden flash as electricity lit up Sasuke's sword. The electricity was sent through the metallic parts in the clay in Deidara's sword. The result was the mad bomber crying out in pain as he jumped back to get away from the current. Sasuke then opened his eyes to reveal a fully matured Sharingan. Then the 3 kamas fused together forming a spiral. The boy then charged. The lightning that was coursing through his sword turned black as Sasuke cried out, Raiden! 1000 Bird of Darkness! Deidara jumped out of the way to avoid the black lightning. You need to be better than that if you want to kill me you little bug, Deidara taunted. Who said I was trying to kill you? Sasuke asked. At that moment a bunch of dogs jumped out of the sand and clamped down on Deidara keeping him in place. What the hell? He yelled. He looked to see Kakashi with his hands in the sand with a summoning scroll. You let yourself get angry with Sasuke, Kakashi explained. With your anger distracting you I was able to do this. Damn you. Deidara yelled. He threw out an arm and shot out a clay bird. Kakashi jumped to the side, but was knocked to the side by the blast and hit a sand dune hard. He tried to shoot again, but was cut off when his arm was cut off by Sasuke. You little twerp. Deidara yelled in fury, I'll kill you. I swear I will kill you. Is that all you can say? Sasuke asked. Deidara just glared at them his mechanical eye flashing. Well then, Sasuke said, since you don't have anything else to say I'll end this. Tsukunomi. Deidara made the mistake of looked into Sasuke's eyes. In the genjutsu. Warning. Torture scene. If these aren't allowed in T-rated ones I'm sorry. For those of you who don't want to see this. Skip it until you see bold print again. Deidara looked around. He was in some kind of chamber tied to a crucifix. The room was blank with stone walls and only torches lighting the room. In front of him stood a large muscular man with a leather mask. He reached into a small object that had smoke rising out of it. The man then approached Deidara and ripped open his shirt. He then took out a hot metal brand and pressed it to Deidara's chest, making his scream in pain. The man then removed the brand. The Uchiha symbol was now branded on his chest. Deidara couldn't move, he only whimpered as the man reached for the thing again and took out heated poker. He turned Deidara around and started cutting his back. Deidara screamed again as the searing metal cut through the flesh on his back. He was then spun around again. A knife was put in his jaw. It was then slit across his cheeks. The man then put on a pair of studded brass knuckles and started beating the mad bomber into the wall. After Deidara had 2 broken ribs, one of which pierced his lung, multiple broken teeth, and his bionic eye was shattered. The man then put a knife under each fingernail and peeled each one off at a slow and torturing pace. The pain was completely. The made bomber was then hit multiple times with a whip over his chest. The gash marks were then covered with salt and gravel, making them burn even more than before. As that was over, Deidara was cut down from the crucifix and onto the floor. The blonde, despite his pain, rose up from the ground. He saw a shadow loom over him. He looked up to see his tormentor wielding a very large axe. The man rose it up and then brought down on his neck. All went black. Deidara then rose up and looked around. He was in the same position as when he started. He still felt the pain from his earlier torture. He then noticed the man before him from before reaching for the brand. As the searing metal touched his skin, Sasuke's voice hit his ears. Only 71 hours, 23 hours and 59 seconds to go. At that, the mad bomber's screams only got louder. And done. For those of you who read this, let me know what you thought. Deidara's screams faded as his limp body fell to the ground at Sasuke's feet. Kakashi was looking at the fallen Akatsuki member with a look of shock and slight fear on his face. Not to self, he said out loud, "If Sasuke is mad, never look him in the eyes." What was in that illusion? Medieval torture chamber, Sasuke said. Read it in a book. Huh, Kakashi said. Can I borrow that book sometime? Sasuke shook his head. Then he heard an explosion. Come on, Sasuke said. We need to find the others. As the two left, they never noticed Sasori's hand twitching ever so slightly. Round 2. Sasori vs Naruto, Sakura and Chio. Naruto was using his swords to cut down puppets left and right. Chio and Sakura were managing to put a beat down on each puppet as well. None of them were able to get a good shot in with Sasori because there were so many puppets. They didn't even have time to do any jutsu. Naruto was making good time. Apparently his tails had some use as well. They grew to surprising lengths and crushed some puppets every now and again, allowing Naruto to cover his front and back. Of course he did have to dodge a couple poison arrows here and there and a few other projectiles, but he was still doing good. Chio and Sakura were both doing the same thing. Thanks to their chakra control, they were able to sense incoming attacks using a chakra radar. Good thing these puppets were made from old bodies and still had an amount of chakra that could be traced. Oh man! Naruto yelled out as he cut down another puppet and dodged a poison needle. How many puppets does this maniac have? He's like a one-man army. He's probably gotten them for all the people he's ever beaten, Chio said as she performed a dropkick on some puppet that got in her way. We need some way to take these guys down and fast, Naruto thought out loud. Then he got an idea. He looked at Sakura and made motions with his swords. The girl nodded and took out 2 scrolls from her pocket. She cut her thumb and spread them on each before jumping in the air to avoid a volley of poison arrows. She unsealed the 2 objects, which were 2 giant pillars. What are those supposed to do? Chio asked incredulously. Sakura then took out her bow. She then separated the 2 halves and revealing a strong chain. She then stabbed each end into a pillar. Hit it, Naruto! Sakura yelled as she came crashing down on another puppet. Naruto cut down 1 puppet before making a beeline for the giant pillars. The blonde then stabbed the 2 swords into the bottom of the pillar and lifted them up with a strained grunt. He then spun on his heel and started rotating his arms a bit. The pillar on top spun with it. Chio then realized what it was. It was a giant nunchaku. Naruto then brought one end down yelling, two-sword style, great fencing sword. The giant weapon was brought down and crushed a bunch of puppets like insects. Sasori watched on amazed. That kid was a chunin? Apparently the Hidden Leaf village wasn't falling from grace like some other ninja villages thought it was. After a few swings the large pillar shattered having hit a rock on the ground. The blonde then drew his swords out of the pillar. Looks like your army is gone doll boy, Naruto taunted. Sakura pulled her chain out of the pillar that was left and changed it back its bow form. I'm not dead yet boy, Sasori said with a smirk. At that moment 3 puppets shot out of the ground. The 3 didn't have time to react as poison blades were slashed across their backs. Now you die, Sasori said with a victorious grin. He still had his guard up though in case the other 2 showed up. There you are, Sasori said turning his gaze at Sasuke and Kakashi. What did you do to them? Sasuke asked. My poison, Sasori said, it causes agonizing pain until death. Your friends will die slowly. The man then turned his attention to the 2 and was about to fight them when Mutton shot. Sasori was sent flying to a sand dune. He rose up with a lot of cracks formed on his face. He rose up just in time to take 2 more strong hits to the chest and stomach. He let out a low groan of pain. He rose up and looked out and his eyes widened at the sight of Naruto, Sakura, and his grandmother standing fine, but looking a little pained. How? He asked. Naruto smirked at the former Suna nin. Flashback. You want us to drink this? Naruto asked as he looked at Chio. Yes, Chio said, it's the antidote for the poison that Sasori used on Kankuro. If we drink it now it should help us when we fight him. Thanks Chio, Sakura said taking a sip of the fluid. The pink-haired kunzite grimaced at the taste. Naruto, Sasuke and Kakashi all took a sip of the vial. Of course Kakashi did it while they weren't looking so they didn't get to see his face. When we do face them, Chio said, don't let yourselves get hit with the blades. We need to keep the fact that we took this a surprise. It may give us time to hurt him. Got it Granny, Naruto said. Chio growled and Gnarl couldn't help but chuckle. That earned him a bop over the head from the woman riding on his back. End flashback. Now it's our turn to bash you. You overgrown pack of wood. Naruto yelled. Sakura went first. She spread her bow with the chain again and started twirling one end like she would a nunchaku. She swung it hard and struck Sasori's chest. The redhead was sent flying. He was intercepted by Kakashi who brought down both hands hard on his head. Sasuke came up next and nailed him in the side of the head sending him flying. Chio caught her grandson and then gave him a long overdue beating. Naruto came up next forming 5 shadow clones. Ready boys? Naruto asked. The clones all nodded. Chio then threw her grandson at the blonde boy. Naruto brought up his leg sending Sasori skyward before calling out, 10 crushing swords. Clone 1 ran underneath the airborne puppeteer. Jumped up a bit and swung both downward yelling, 2 sword style. Double slash. Climbing the tower. 2 air-based projectiles shot off and hit Sasori sending him up. Clone 2 jumped up high over Deidara. He took the same stance and swung his sword down saying, 2 sword style. Double slash. Tower climb return. 2 more projectiles shot from the swords and struck Deidara. The force plus gravity sent him plummeting. Sasori rose up in pain. His chest was cracking all over. In his pain he didn't notice Clone 3 coming at him until he spoke the words, 2 swords style. Double slash. Flash. Sasori looked up to see 2 air projectiles coming at him. He didn't even have time to dodge. He was sent flying as the razor-sharp air hit him slicing his chest and cracking it more. Clone 4 came up behind him and held out his sword parallel and called out, 2 sword style. Double slash. Sand drawing. 2 more air projectiles struck the redhead chest causing his chest to crack more and a lot of it to chip off. Even his stomach was starting to crack. Damn, he thought, one more hit like that and I'm dead. Clone 5 came rushing. Deidara sent out a few chakra strings. He may not have had puppets left, but his chakra strings could still crush shadow clones. The clone dodged left and right. After a few minutes of bobbing and weaving he reached Deidara. 2 sword style. Double slash. Demon bear. Instead of 2 projectiles being launched the clone pounded both swords into Sasori's chest. This time it shattered. When the wood that was his body broke away it revealed a beating human heart. The clones all vanished in puffs of smoke while the real Naruto sealed his sword into his back again. The unpredictable ninja then rushed at the man forming a Rasengan. "No," Sasori whispered, "I won't be killed by you." Sasori's body opened up and he shot multiple poison-laced projectiles. With Naruto's clones all gone and with his arms occupied with the Rasengan he was forming, he was defenseless. Sakura saw this and put her nunchaku back in its bow form. She then notched it and quickly focused chakra into the wind chakra. "Spiral arrow," she said as she shot a swirling arrow of wind. The wind knocked away all the projectiles. At that moment Naruto was on Sasori. At this time the Rasengan in Naruto's hand was much larger than the original. It was about the size of a basketball and drew it back. "Eat this, puppet boy," Naruto yelled over the spiral of chakra, Udamu Rasengan. Sasori screamed in pain as the massive ball of spiraling chakra tore through his body and through his heart. The puppeteer then stumbled back before hitting the ground. As he looked up at Naruto he gasped. He saw standing above him the Yondaime of Konoha. "I see now," Sasori said, "you will surpass your father yet." "I plan on," Naruto said. With that Sasori of the red sand died. The blonde then reached down and cut off his head. "Least we'll be able to cash in on this," Naruto said, then his eyes widened. "Oh crap. Gaara." The others gasped and then made a beeline for the caves. They found the cave Gaara was in. The problem was Gaara was laying on his face. "Gaara," Naruto yelled, "damn, they already took out his demon. He's dying." "Maki," Gaara said, "the village. My brother, are they safe?" "They're fine, Gaara," Naruto said, looking at the boy. Chio sat down next to Naruto and laid a hand on the boy's chest. "I think I might be able to save him," Chio said, "stand back." The woman then placed her hand on Gaara's chest. She focused her chakra and started to use her knowledge of both the seal on his heart and of medical jutsu to heal him. "Gaara," Chio whispered so only he could hear, "I don't see why you want to live. People never change. This world will never change. The world will always be violent and unnecessary death will always be around us." Gaara gave a weak laugh. "Chio, you weren't there after the sealing. I was a monster. I killed all who stood in my way just to prove my existence. Though loving myself and caring only for myself was the only way that I would be able to exist. Then I met someone. He told me that the only way to live is to protect those you care about. My brother, my sister, my village. I protect them, and I have grown stronger because of it." "Who is this person?" the old woman asked. She wanted to know who it was who was able to change the boy. "Naruto Uzumaki," the redhead answered. With that Gaara slept. The first time he slept in a long time. Chio removed her hands from Gaara's chest. "Is he going to be okay?" Naruto asked. "He'll be fine," Chio said before she collapsed. "Chio!" Naruto yelled. Naruto ran to her side. "What's going on?" Naruto asked. "Naruto," she whispered, "the jutsu I used on Gaara drains the life of the person using so the other can live. My life is fading. Don't shed tears for this old woman. My time was coming soon anyway. Now I'm glad to see someone who isn't all about power. Don't ever change Naruto and change the world." With those words the old woman's life left her. Naruto lowered his head and closed her open eyes. Kakashi, Sasuke, and Sasuke all lowered their heads in respect. Meanwhile, Deidara lay in the sand, his severed arm off to the side. Clay had formed around the wound keeping him from bleeding to death. His chest rose up and down painfully. Then out of the sand rose Zetsu. The plan man then reached down and picked up the former Iwa Nin. "He will be mad when he wakes up," the plant man said as he sank into the sand carrying the mad bomber with him. Team 7 stayed for a few more days after saving Gaara. They were thrown a huge party. As soon as they got back Naruto was whisked away by Temari and the two weren't seen for hours. When they finally got back Naruto had a huge smile on his face and Temari was limping. After that and making sure Gaara was okay the team headed back to Konoha. Meanwhile back in Konoha, "So what is this whole thing about Naruto?" Suande asked. "Our favorite blonde had called her and Jiraiya to them. Ba-chan," Naruto said, "I think we're going to need to be a lot stronger if we're going to fight these Akatsuki guys. We managed to kill one of them, but we still have a lot more to fight. Plus something's not right." "What do you mean?" the elder blonde asked. "I was going over my dad's notes of sealing," Naruto said. According to that, it would normally take a few days to take a demon from a seal and transfer it into something else. It took them a few hours. They must have found a way to speed up the sealing process. Plus we still have to worry about Danzo. What are you getting at, Naruto? Jiraiya asked. An alliance, Naruto said, between us and all the other villages. Tsunade stared at the blonde like he was insane. Are you crazy? Tsunade asked. Kumo is still mad at us for the Hyuga incident. Iwa is still mad at us for what your father did to them. And who knows what all the other villages think. Don't worry, Ba-chan, Naruto said. Avoid a punch from the blonde. We all have a common enemy, so I think they will listen to reason. If not, well, all we lose is an alliance. Hopefully it won't be too bad of an idea. Okay, Naruto, Tsunade said after a few minutes of thought. I'm going to send messages to the cages requesting their audience with their Jinchuriki. Call Suna too. Temari and Kankuro may need some new tools. Got it, Ba-chan, Naruto said as he avoided a punch to the face again. Now Arrow-Sennin, what can you tell me about the cages and the current Jinchuriki? Well, Jiraiya said, the new cage of mist is Mei Terumi. She supposedly is able to use both lava style and boil style. Their current Jinchuriki is dead, but the demon, the three tails, went missing. It should manifest again in about a year or so. The Yondaime Reikage is named A. The two Jinchuriki of his village is Yugito Ni, the jailer of two tails, and Kurabi, the holder of the 8 tails. The Sandame Tsuchikage is named Onoki. According to my network, despite his age, he is incredibly strong and is able to use dust style. The Jinchuriki with him are Rushi, the jailer of the Yonbi, and Han, the holder of the Gobi. Okay, Naruto said, so what about the others? The one in Waterfall was taken, Jiraiya said sadly, so were the 6 and 7 tails. Dang, Naruto said. Okay, only send a note to the cages who still have Jinchuriki, Kiri, and Suna. Tell them to come to the village. Tell them it's urgent. Where are you going? Tsunade asked the boy. I've got work to do, Naruto said, heading home. With that, Tsuande set to work on what to write. Later in Iwa, Tsuchikage-sama, and Enbu said as he walked in, a letter for you. The Tsuchikage was an old man with a big red nose, a triangular beard and mustache with angular corners. He had rectangular-shaped eyebrows and had no hair except some white hair on the back and the sides of his head, the back of which was tied with a yellow ribbon into a topknot. He wore a unique green and yellow coat with a red collar. If you could see underneath it, you could see an Iwa flag jacket. The old man took the note and read it. Dear Tsuchikage Dono, I would like to request your presence in Konoha. We know about our past differences and struggles, but we need to put that aside. A group called the Akatsuki is after the Biju. If they gather them, all things will go terribly wrong. They already have 4 so far. If you come, we can discuss this further. Bring your Jinchuriki. Signed, the Godem Hokage. Anbu. Onoki yelled, bring me Han and Rushi. We leave for Konoha immediately. Meanwhile in Kiri, you have a letter, Mizukage-sama, said a tall man with a sword on his back and glasses. The Mizukage was a tall, busty woman with long red hair and blue lipstick. She had on a blue battle kimono with a fishnet shirt underneath it. Thank you, Chojuro, Mei said, and what did I tell you about calling me that? She opened the letter and read it. Dear Mizukage Dono, I would like to request your presence in Konoha. We know that you have gotten out of civil war recently, but we need help. A group called the Akatsuki is after the Biju. If they succeed in gathering all 9 no villages safe. If no, this may be asking much of you, but come to Konoha where we may speak of an alliance. Signed, the Godem Hokage. Mei set down the note and called out, Chojuro. Ow, pack some stuff. We're going to Konoha. Meanwhile in Kumo, a tall, dark-skinned, well-muscled man with shades, a muscle shirt and 8 swords on his back walked into the Reikage's office. Hey bro, what do you know? The man asked. He then had to avoid getting hit in the head with a paperweight. What did I tell you about that infernal rapping Kurabi? The Reikage growled. Like Kurabi, the Reikage was well built with dark skin, slicked back white hair, and a small mustache and beard. He wore regular cage robes. Under it he had no shirt, Fuma shuriken tattoos on both shoulders, and gold bangle bracelets on his wrists. He also had a gold belt on his waist with a boar's face engraved in the center. What's it about, little brother? I asked as he took the note and read it. When he finished he dropped it and said, Kurabi, get Yugito. We're going to Konoha. Kurabi nodded and then took off to find Yugito. Meanwhile, Gaara got a note like that, only it said that it was to enforce their alliance. A few days later, the Cages and their Jinchuriki were walking through Fire Country. So you got called too, huh? Asked Onoki. Yep, the Tsuchikage said. The Hokage said something about a group called the Akatsuki. They said something about them wanting the Biju. How do we know this isn't a bunch of hui? It isn't hui, Gaara said, glaring at the old man alongside his sister and brother. I almost died at their hands. The same with my brother. They mean business. I'm with the kid on this one, Mei said. And make up, boy, if you don't stop staring at my butt I'm going to melt your balls off. Kankoro took his eyes off the girl's butt instantly. Meanwhile, Yugito and Tamari had struck up a conversation. It had been a while since either of them was able to make some girl talk. I don't know what they say, and I don't think I want to know. After about an hour of traveling in silence they arrived. When they arrived they saw a welcome banner along with the Hokage and the Konoha 12, minus Naruto, and the Jonin waiting for them. Glad you could make it, Suande said with a grin. Well, Onoki said, it took some doing, but we got here. This is Han and Rushi. My village's Jinchuriki. Han was a tall man that stood a head taller than Kurabi. He wore red armor that covered most of his body and covered up half of his face. On his back he seemed to have some kind of furnace thing. Underneath the mask he also wore a white cloth that covers both sides of his face and the top of his head. Aside from the red armor he also wore a red kasa over the white cloth, and it seemed to be made of the same stuff as his armor. Over his armor he wore a black gi, with the sleeves seeming torn off, and black gloves. He also seemed to wear a bronze ring around his neck over his armor. Rushi wore a large headpiece consisting of a three-pointed crown-like ridge, bearing his Iwa headband and a ring. It also had a black piece of armor running across his cheeks and the bridge of his nose. His hair was solid red and he had a beard and mustache that were also red. He also wore a long-sleeved purple shit, pants, and brown armor. He also had a bag tied to his waist. Glad to see another woman given her due, Mei said, shaking Sunan's hand. Yo girl, Kurabi greeted. How you doing? Yugito and the Raikage froze. Oh my god, Yugito whispered, he didn't rap. I guess since this is something other cages were warned about I figured I'd be serious, Kurabi said, but that doesn't mean I'm stopping permanently. What's he talking about? Rushi asked. Kurabi has a bit of a rapping habit, Yugito explained, though funny at time it is annoying. As Yugito was made known everyone got a good look at her. The girl had straight blonde hair bound with taut bandages and dark eyes. She wore a short-sleeved black and purple blouse and black pants that had the images of clouds on them. On her hands she wore purple fingerless gloves and a chain of white beads were wound around her left hand. The standard Kumo headband and her kunai holster were strapped to her right thigh. She also wore bandages around her arms and legs as well as a red belt around her waist. So why are we here? Asked Suande. The cage summits are usually held in the Land of Iron. It'll be explained soon, Tsunade said, motioning for the cages and Jinchuriki to follow her. The Jinchuriki followed their cages. Mei was followed by two men named Chojuro and Ao. Chojuro had short, tuffy blue hair and dark eyes. If he smiled you could see a mouth of pointed teeth. He wore a square black trimmed glasses connected to what appears to be headphones, a blue pin-striped shirt, and camouflage pants. His headband was worn on the front of a holster. He used to carry a sword that seemed to have two handles linked by a chain. Ao had a patch over his right eye. He wore a talisman in each ear with the kanji for to hear written on them twice on each side. He also wore a striped shirt and pants with the same pattern. He had spiky blue hair that resembled Kisame Hoshigaki. The group made their way to a large complex. When they entered they were greeted to the sound of a hammer striking metal. What is that? Rushi asked as he looked around. Naruto must still be in the forge, Tsunade said. Naruto? Han asked. Our village's Jinchuriki, Suande said. The jailer of the Nine Tails. Whoa, Kurabi said. Nine Tails? Hachibi was wondering what happened to that guy. Well, Tsunade said, since Naruto is going to be busy for a little bit I suggest that we go ahead and get started. Suande led them into the main room. Waiting for them was Jiraiya, who hit a switch as soon as they entered. After he did there was a blast of chakra that shot into the sky. and grew until the chakra field that surrounded the place during the training session for the Konoha 12 surrounded it. Now that is security, Han said in awe. Everyone else, who hadn't seen it before, was also shocked. Ahem, Tsunade said, getting everyone's attention. They all walked in and found a large table waiting for them. A chair had their village symbol on the back. Each one took their seat. So what's this Akatsuki business? Onoki asked, annoyed. What do they want with the demons inside the Jinchuriki? Apparently, Tsunade said, they're transferring the demons into a large statue. It's not really known what the statue is for, but whatever it is, it can't be good. So you want an alliance between our villages so that we can be better prepared for these guys, Mei said, crossing her arms under her chest. It makes sense, Gaara said. With the power of all the tailed beasts at their disposal, they could destroy all of the elemental countries. No one would be safe. What do we get in return? I asked. I want to protect my brother and all, but what else do we get out of it? I was hoping you would ask, Suande said with a smirk. At that moment, footsteps were heard. The door opened to reveal a tired-looking spiky-haired blonde with red streaks tied in a ponytail, wearing a black that showed off the muscles on his arms. He wasn't too bulky, but it was more of an athletic build. On his back he carried a massive scroll. All the foreign cages and Jinchuriki thought they were seeing a ghost. No way, Han said, shock in his eyes. The yellow flash is alive? Rushi asked in a slightly fearful voice. The blonde chuckled. I may look like him, but I'm not the Yondaime. Take another guess. The Yondaime's son? Onoki asked. Correct, Tsuchikage Dono, Naruto said in an unusually respectable tone. Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, at your service. Everyone sat in silence for a few minutes. Weird, Naruto said after a few minutes. I thought you would have tried to kill me. What? Onoki asked, clearly confused. Well, after the whole shinobi war thing, I thought that you would have harbored hate toward my family, Naruto said. Actually, Onoki said, the team your father intercepted was in fact planning a coup against my village. If it weren't for your father, my village would have wound up like the bloody mist. Oh, no offense, Mizukage Dono. None taken, Mei said with a chuckle. So what is it you have for us? Asked the young Namikaze. Tools that will be able to help you in the long run, Naruto said, unraveling the scroll. Who wants to go first? Me. Mei said, jumping up from her seat and running over. Energetic, aren't we? Naruto asked with a chuckle. Naruto scanned the scroll for a few seconds until he found the kanji for mist. The blonde then smeared some blood onto it and there was a puff of smoke. When it cleared, it showed two beautiful blades. The weapons were basically big curved blades with handles on them. One had the kanji for lava in red plus had the image of swirling lava. The other had the kanji for boil and had the image of swirling boiling water. Wow, Mei said as she took the two blades from Naruto. The twin spirals, Naruto said. Both swords have the ability to turn into the element given to them. There are even sword techniques with your lava and boil abilities. Lovely, the Mizukage said, smiling. Thanks. No problem, Naruto said. Your next Reikage Dono. The large man walked up. Naruto placed his thumb across the kanji for cloud and a large metal kanabo came out. It had a series of ridges and spikes going along its length. Crushing thunder, Naruto said with a smile. This is able to take on lightning chakra, hence the name. It even has its own ability. What would that be? I asked. Naruto politely took the weapon from the man. Then setting it on his shoulder, he twisted it. The from opened and a handle popped out of the bottom. Naruto gripped the handle and aimed at the wall. Naruto focused his chakra. Second later, a large ball of lightning shot out of the hole on the front. It crashed into the wall and then blew up, leaving a huge hole. Whoa, Kurabi said in shock. I got the idea from some old scrolls, Naruto said. It's based off an old weapon called a bazooka. Apparently it could shoot projectiles that blow up on contact. I took his weapon and grinned before moving to the side with the Mizukage. Tsuchikage Dono, Naruto called the man. The old man walked up to Naruto. Naruto placed his blood on the seal for rock and unsealed a massive flail. It was basically a huge black ball with red spikes on a short stick. Crusher is all I could think of to name this one, Naruto said. So what does this one do? Onoki asked, interested. Naruto focused chakra into the handle and swung. A chain made of chakra came out, attacked to the ball, and it smashed into the wall, forming a huge dent. I'm not sure if you can use your dust ability with this, Naruto said. but it should help you out if someone keeps you from using your dust jutsu. Thank you boy, the old cage said, joining the other two. Gaara, Naruto called to the boy, I know you can't use sand anymore, but I made you this. Naruto unsealed a gourd that was filled with sand. This sand, Naruto said, can be manipulated by your chakra. It'll take more concentration, but it should help. In addition, I've added some materials to it that diverts electricity and it can dry automatically. Thank you Namikaze-san, Gaara said. Gaara please, Naruto said. Just Naruto. I hate formalities. Okay then Naruto-san, Gaara said with a cheeky grin. Naruto growled and glared at the back of the cage. Temari, Naruto said, you can consider these engagement gifts. The blonde took out two weapons that made Temari gasp. They were two small black fans. The paper inside of the fan was green and both had the kanji for cyclone on them. The twin cyclones, Naruto said, work like your regular fan. Being smaller, they're made for close combat and are much more effective in close combat. Temari smirked before kissing Naruto deeply. This earned coos from the women around him and chuckles from the older men. Temari broke the kiss and then walked away swaying her hips. Yo Blondie, Kankuro yelled, you still there? Oh right, Naruto said, unsealing a new item. Kankuro gasped as a puppet the size of a full-grown man stood before them. It looked human but its head was a block. The face seemed to be in a frozen smile. Its arms had small blades coming off and pointing outward as well as one coming of the front and back of its legs. There were also small spikes on its hands and the bottom of its feet. On its chest were what looked like multiple rolls of ninja wire. I call it jester, Naruto said, as you can tell it's made for battle and capture. The blades help with combat while the chest is able to shoot of ninja wire. It has a multitude of 4 faces. Happy, sad, angry, and scared. For each face it controls a different elemental seal in the mouth. Focus chakra at the point and the element will fire. Sad uses water, happy uses lightning, angry uses fire, and scared uses earth. Earth most because it can be used for defense. Thanks man, Kankuro said, taking his new puppet. You're up Hokage Dono, Naruto said, smiling, getting a shocked look from the woman, to whom he replied, you think I'd leave you and Arrow Sennin out of this? The cages looked at Naruto in shock. Did he just, started, but Naruto interrupted saying, dude, Naruto said, we're talking about the guy who writes Icha Icha. At the mention of the book series every girl glared at the man who gulped nervously. Now where was I? Naruto asked out loud. Oh right. Naruto unsealed a pair of gauntlets. Both had razor blades coming off and spikes on the knuckle as well as armor that covered the fingers and palms. Think the TMNT Shredder gauntlet and glove only add spikes to the knuckles. Cool, Suande said. Basically it just adds a little extra oomph to your punches, Naruto said. Naruto then unsealed a staff from the scroll. It had 2 brass rings on each side and had a small golden toad sitting on the front. This is for you Arrow Sennin, Naruto said. Add chakra to it and it can crack armor. The toad on the front is able to shoot oil, so watch where you aim it. Naruto then turned to the Jinchuriki present and said, you guys are next. Hey, don't we get anything? Ao asked, a little annoyed. Dude, Naruto said, you have a Byakugan eye under that eye patch and your friend there is one of the 7 swordsmen of the mist. I think you go the strength thing covered. Cheeky little brat, Ao mumbled. Now then let's go from lowest to highest, Naruto said. You're up first little kitty. Yugito blushed slightly at the name and Kurabi chuckled slightly. Naruto unsealed a nasty-looking set of gauntlets and greaves with twin purple stripes going down them. These claws, Naruto said, are capable to withstanding Nibi's chakra. It can help you spread her demonic fire while at close range. Wow, Yugito said. She heard Nibi purring in approval. He certainly knows his weapons, kitten, Nibi said. I suggest we find a way to thank him later. Oh quiet Nibi, Yugito said. Are you sure? Nibi purred. I mean look at those muscles, and with Q-Kun's chakra he could go on for hours and hours and, Nibi. Spoilsport, the cat grumbled. Roshi, Naruto said. The bearded man stepped up as Naruto unsealed a large hammer. It had a long black shaft and the head of the hammer had multiple prongs on it. This hammer, Naruto said, is able to take on the Yanbi's chakra. With this you can not only crush your foes, but also burn them alive. Hot, Roshi said. Han, Naruto called out as Yugito walked toward the wreckage. The armored man walked up. Naruto unsealed a pair of katana. The hilts didn't look normal. They made it look like the blade was coming out of a vent. "These swords should help you out with the Gobi's steam ability," Naruto said. "I didn't know what to go with, but I heard you used a steam ability once because of your armor. This should help you out a bit." "Thank you my friend," Han said smirking. "You're up number 8, Naruto said as Kurabi stepped up. Naruto then unsealed 7 swords that had jagged edges and each had the kanji for 8 at the bottom of the blades. "These swords," Naruto said, "are capable of releasing lightning chakra and demonic chakra. I already know about your buzzsaw move from the bingo book. Think of this as an extra edge to it." "Nice man," Kurabi said, taking the swords and replacing his old ones with them. "So," Naruto said, "do we all have an agreement?" "Yes," Onoki said. "There shall be an alliance between our villages. Now we just have to deal with a few loose ends. What would that be?" Onoki asked. Naruto was about to answer when he noticed that the shield around the complex was gone. At that moment there was a loud explosion. Everyone turned just in time to see a bunch of men in blank masks with the kanji for root on them jump out. "Time for you and your kind to die, demon," one of them yelled before charging. The others were about to jump in when Naruto unsealed a silver sword with the image of a dove on the bottom with the kanji for heaven's dove on it. The blonde swung his sword calling out, "One sword style. Phoenix of the 36 earthly desires." A razor-sharp whirlwind shot out and sliced up each and every one of the root soldiers. At that moment more explosions rang out from all over the village. More specifically the clan compounds. Naruto turned to the cages. Sage and Jinchuriki-san said, "Playtime's over. Let's show these guys how you earned your titles." With that they all ran out to join the battle. THSTA all for now. If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments.